present, all the directors, staff, the technical committee of the CCIO, represented here by the able chairman, Ken Alela of the National Lands Commission, and all the committee present. Our online participants, wherever you are, feel most welcome to this forum. All protocol observed, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once more. As per the program, we will start with the first session with the honorable members that are present here. This is a pre-celebration public lecture, which is a pre-event to the 10th anniversary of the Constitutional Commissions and Independent Offices celebrations that are going to be held next week, 13th. Allow me to introduce Professor Winfred Kamau. Professor Winfred Kamau, she holds both a bachelor's and master's of law degrees from the University of Nairobi and a PhD from Osgood Hall Law School, York University in Canada. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya of more than 20 years standing, is a certified public secretary and qualified for associate of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. Professor Kamau is an associate professor at the School of Law, University of Nairobi, and she's currently the Dean of Faculty of Law at University of Nairobi. We are going to welcome her to make her welcoming remarks and set the climate for this session. Welcome, Professor. Let's give her a hand of applause.
Good morning, everyone. To the Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi, the chairpersons of constitutional commissions and heads of independent offices, members of constitutional commissions and independent offices, heads of government departments and state corporations, representatives of civil society, colleagues from academia, from the University of Nairobi and other universities, our own students of the University of Nairobi and particularly from the Faculty of Law, and to the general public, joining us both physically and online, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this public lecture, which commemorates the 10th anniversary since the establishment of constitutional commissions and independent offices, or CCIOs. The Faculty of Law of the University of Nairobi is delighted to partner with the CCIO's Consultative Forum, headed by the National Land Commission, in co-hosting this event, which, as you have been informed, is a pre-celebratory event in anticipation of the main event, which will be next week on the 13th of April. I'd like to say thank you to the Consultative Forum for choosing the Faculty of Law and the University of Nairobi in partnering for this event. A little bit about the Faculty of Law. You may well be aware that the Faculty of Law of the University of Nairobi is the oldest faculty, established in 1970. So we celebrated 50 years in 2020. We are now 52 years old, and we feel we have come of age. It is also a leading center of teaching, learning, and research, not only in Kenya but in the region, and with very good standing internationally. And constitutional discourse is at the center of teaching, learning, research, and public engagement at the Faculty of Law. Collectively and at an individual level, we were engaged in the arduous and vibrant, if heated process of constitution making that resulted in our 2020 Constitution. We are deeply committed to the realization of constitutional principles and values, and we continue to promote constitutionalism and the rule of law through scholarly engagement in our teaching and learning, in our and in all our engagements. Our faculty and alumni have served in key roles in the constitutional commissions and independent offices, both as members of commission and also as staff. And we have also engaged in many ways, particularly in the formulation of policy and legal frameworks that culminated in the establishment of these commissions. At the level of teaching and learning, we have ensured that all our students read constitutional law. So it is a compulsory unit in the undergraduate Bachelor of Laws program. At the master's level, and law, democracy, and governance, which encompasses constitutional law, is a thematic area at both the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Of note, and to underscore the importance of constitutional commissions and independent offices, we have our revised, in our revised Master of Laws program included as a course, which is specifically on commissions and governance. So in a way, there was foresight that commissions will become a big, part of governance in this country. And our scholars, as I've said, have from the beginning played a key role in constitution making and constitutional review, and have contributed heavily in the development of policy and legal frameworks of CCIOs. At this time, we are exploring partnership avenues with several constitutional commissions and independent offices through which we can continue to contribute to research and learning and policy engagement in the realization of further constitutional gains for Kenya. When we serve Wanjiko, whom as we know embodies the Kenyan, when we serve Wanjiko and the nation in these ways, we do so with humility. For from whom so much is given, so much will also be required. We therefore feel privileged to co-host this public lecture, and I believe that the conversations in this forum will go a long way towards furthering the agenda of deepening constitutionalism and rule of law in this country. I wish to thank the National Land Commission, the Secretariat, acting on behalf of the CCIO Consultative Forum for partnering with us in this. I'd like to thank our distinguished speakers, panelists, and moderators for accepting to our invitation to present. And I particularly wish to thank our colleagues from the National Land Commission, and I'd like to single out Robert Coet and Nancy, because of the tireless work they have done in ensuring the success of this event. Also, the registrar of the faculty and the team, the team from the Dean's Office who have also worked very, very hard, and the ICT team as well. So, because I may not have a chance to give a vote of thanks, I'd just like to register my thanks for all those efforts. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. Let us engage, and I wish us all fruitful deliberations as we move on. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Let us give Professor a better clap. Thank you very much, Professor, for your remarks and setting the climate. Allow me to invite the chairperson of the Chairpersons Forum of CCIOs, Mr. Gershon Otachi, who is also the chairperson of the National Lands Commission. Mr. Gershon Otachi is a graduate of the Nairobi University with a degree in Bachelor's of Law, and was admitted to the bar in 1990. He has been in the legal practice as an advocate for 29 years, appearing before all levels of courts and specialized tribunals in civil, crime, criminal, land and property, succession and election disputes, besides practice in other aspects of commercial law and conveyancing. He has also simultaneously practiced law in international courts for a period of over 20 years, and he has served as a chairman in 2 state corporations, that is Policyholders Compensation Fund and Geothermal Development Company, that is GDC, for a total of 6 years, and he is currently the chairperson of the National Lands Commission. Let us put our hands together and welcome Mr. Gerson Otachi.
Thank you very much. Can I be heard? Okay, thank you very much. The representative of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Mr. Brian Ouma, the chairpersons of constitutional commissions and independent officers are present here today. My Vice Chair, Florence Kajuju, Dr. Mutinda, Mr. Chebukati, and the Auditor General, Nancy Kadungu, commissioners and board members, CEOs and secretaries, our speakers and moderators who have graciously agreed to join us today, Professor Mbote, Mr. Kamau, Professor Sihanya, stakeholders present, and those virtually following, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the constitutional commissions and independent officers, the CCIOs, as the current chair of that caucus, it gives me great pleasure to join you this morning and to welcome you during this engagement that is of great importance to our nation's journey of constitutionalism. On behalf of the constitutional commissions and independent officers, allow me to convey warm greetings to all distinguished participants present here today and those who are following virtually. Allow me to thank most sincerely the University of Nairobi Faculty of Law for graciously hosting us for this public lecture, and more importantly, willing to be part of this important engagement. This demonstrates the long-standing commitment of the university to champion national discourse that takes forward our reform agenda. I'm delighted to know that this particular engagement has elicited a lot of interest directly or indirectly by representation. Secondly, secure by all state organs the observance of democratic values and principles. And thirdly, promote constitutionalism. And talking of promotion of constitutionalism, it gives me great pleasure and brings fond memories to me when I stand here at the University of Nairobi, recalling that some of us were taught constitutionalism and constitutional law in some hall downstairs. Speaking for myself, I was taken through that very meticulously by a retired judge of the Supreme Court, Professor Juang, and he took us through that. And I am happy to be in the company of many others now professors who took up that mantle, Professor Mbote, Professor Sihanya, who has written a lot on constitutional commissions. So it's really a unique opportunity that we are here discussing constitutionalism at the University of Nairobi. The main object of constitutional commissions and independent officers is to buttress the tripartite configuration of government and enhance transparency and the rule of law while observing the principles of good governance. Under Article 49, the CCIOs are required to exercise independence and to perform their functions without fear, favor, and prejudice. No person or organ may interfere with their functioning, and they are only subject to the Constitution and the law. Ladies and gentlemen, in May 2012, the founding chairpersons of constitutional commissions and holders of independent officers established a collaborative and a consultative forum in order to provide an avenue for collaboration and consultation. special recognition to the founders of this forum, which were the inaugural chairs of the CCIOs under the chairmanship in order of assumption of office. First Honorable Otiende Amolo of CAJ, the first chair, followed by Charles Nyachai of CIC, Agnes Odhiambo, Controller of Budget then, Dr. Lydia Nzomo, Chair of TSC, and Dr. Jane Kiringai of CRA, from whom I took over. Every year, the forum holds a conference to take stock on progress made in policy, legal, and regulatory reforms, in addition to reviewing the development of the related institutional frameworks. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, it was not possible to hold that conference because of COVID. This year, 2022, is a unique year for the CCIOs. The Forum of Chairs is marking 10 years of existence, and equally, most of the member institutions happen to have turned 10 years last year or this year, or months ago, or are turning 10 years since their establishment. To mark the 10 years, the forum has lined a series of activities to celebrate and highlight their achievements. One such activity is a public lecture that we are participating in today. These activities shall culminate in a celebration to be held on 13th of April 2022 at the Kenyatta International Conference Center, and the theme for the celebration is celebrating a decade of promoting constitutionalism and observance of democratic values and principles. And I take this opportunity to welcome all of you here present to join us in that celebration on 13th of April at KICC. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this public lecture, Taking Stock, accords the CCIOs an opportunity to reflect on the strides the forum has made in advancing democracy, securing citizens' human rights, entrenching fairness, meritocracy, and servanthood in public service, use of public resources, and transparency and accountability. It's also an opportunity to listen to the great champions of the constitutionalism, especially from the historical perspective, and also how the CCIOs can be more effective. More importantly, this engagement will accord members of the public, who are our client, an opportunity to share with us their feedback and also possible areas of improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I would like to take this opportunity to assure you of our continuous commitment to promote constitutionalism and observance of democratic values and principles. To achieve this, I call upon all the stakeholders to continuously support these institutions through adequate funding and progressive policy reforms. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, as we discuss this, and as I address you and all those out there, the fellow Kenyans, this is a time to take stock of where we've come from and where we are heading. And it also coincides with a period in the last 2 years. We've had robust discussions on matters of constitutionalism around BBI. Irrespective of how the matters have gone, there's been robust discussion on matters constitutional, and I think this is an issue that must continue as we move forward. And as far as concerns the constitutional commissions and independent offices, Kenyans have to reflect on whether to continue nurturing these institutions or to allow those institutions, commissions, and independent offices to disintegrate. It's up to the Kenyans to take stock and decide on whether to entrench and strengthen those institutions or allow them to disintegrate. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, a better clap for the chairman. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Gershom Otachi. Allow me now to invite the representative of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Mr. Brian Ouma. Mr. Brian Ouma is the Chief Operations Officer in charge of all administrative and service departments at the University of Nairobi. He holds a bachelor's degree, a BA in philosophy from Pontifical University in Rome, and a master's degree in strategic planning and management from the University of Nairobi. He has a long-standing experience in strategy formulation and resource mobilization. He is self-driven with outstanding organizational and multitasking skills. Remember, we are on hashtag CCIOs at 10, and we have tagged all the CCIOs. And there's photography and videography going around. Please remember to put your best smile. Thank you very much, and let's put our hands together for Mr. Brian Ouma.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to represent my Vice Chancellor, Professor Stephen Kiama, who is in another meeting in Mombasa, but he would have wished really to be here, and he sends his apology. Before I read this speech, I would just also like to welcome all of you on behalf of the university. We are happy as a university always to have this opportunity that brings together stakeholders, academia, industry leaders, government representatives, and today, of course, the constitutional commissions, because we believe that you have a wealth of experience, and the insights that you bring to us will also help us as a university and also help transform what we do and also transform our students. So we believe that that wealth of experience is also going to help us improve in what we are doing. For those who have studied here, and always there are many, we are also happy to welcome you back home to your alma mater. We want to continue opening the university for everybody and continue deepening this academic freedom with working with partners. And we welcome you to also bring your insights, those big insights, into the university. So I'll read the speech of the Vice Chancellor. The chairperson of chairpersons of constitutional commissions, Gershon Otachi, the vice chairperson of commissions, the vice chairperson of constitutional commissions, Florence Kajuju, all chairpersons of constitutional commissions, commissioners present, CEOs present of different parastatals, our deans of faculties, professors, all participants, both here and online. Good morning. On behalf of the management, staff, and students at the University of Nairobi, it is a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the University of Nairobi. We are very delighted and honored to collaborate with the constitutional commissions and independent offices to celebrate the 10th anniversary for constitutional commissions and independent offices in Kenya. On 27th August 2010, Kenya celebrated proverbial break of dawn when they ushered in the new constitution for a wide array of institutional and legal reforms through CCIOs. The objective of these reforms was to consolidate the rule of law, democracy, human rights, and good governance. To meet these objectives, the Constitution established CCIOs with the hope that they would ensure conformity with the new constitutional dispensation by promoting constitutionalism and safeguarding national values and principles. Today, we commemorate a decade of promoting constitutionalism and observance of democratic values and principles in Kenya. Play in ensuring governance, promoting institutional, policy and legal framework, safeguarding constitutionalism, and promoting our national values and principles. As a fourth arm of government, CCIOs have played a crucial role in ensuring transparency, accountability, inclusivity in governance processes in this country. Since the enactment of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the University of Nairobi has hosted and continues to host several conversations that revolve around the constitutional making and implementation process, and that also touch on several issues that are important to CCIOs. The University of Nairobi has also been catalytic in the making and implementation of the Constitution. Over the last 10 years, all the commissions have had a representation from the University of Nairobi in one way or the other, as commissioners, as researchers, as officers, among others. You will not struggle to find a member of staff or a graduate from the University of Nairobi working in the commissions and independent offices. This public lecture and the conversation that follow bring together the insights of scholarship and practice on CCIOs and will contribute to a critical evaluation of the successes, challenges, and opportunities that the CCIOs face in safeguarding constitutionalism. In recognition of the important role that CCIOs play in role and governance, the Chancellor, University of Nairobi.
Is Professor of Law and former Dean at the School of Law, University of Nairobi, where she taught property law, gender and law, equality law and environmental law. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and was conferred with the rank of Senior Counsel in 2012. Patricia is extensively published in diverse areas of law, including gender, environment, and property. She has participated in the development of many national, regional, and international policies and was instrumental in the development of Kenya's national policy and gender and development in 2019. Patricia received her undergraduate degree in law from the University of Nairobi, a master's degree in law from the University of Warwick, a postgraduate diploma in women's law from the University of Zimbabwe, and a doctorate from Stanford Law School. She also holds a higher doctorate in law from the University of Nairobi. Patricia currently serves as a director of the Law Division of the United Nations Environment Program. Let's give her a hand of applause. Welcome, Professor.
Good morning. Chair of the Chairs Forum, the Deputy Chair of the Chairs Forum, chairs of commissions and heads of independent offices, the representative of the University of Nairobi Vice Chancellor, colleague professors, ladies and gentlemen. It is really my pleasure to be here this morning. And as I sat at this stage, I remembered a person who usually comes to galas as we are talking about what happened with the Constitution. His name, I think, is Githuku, and he always tells us to remember to remember. And I think as we trace the journey to the constitutional commissions and independent offices, the message to remember is actually a very critical message. So I hope that in the course of my talk, I will introduce us to the of commissions and independent offices, but also remember, going down the memory lane, and give a few anecdotes to say how are we really doing. Because at the end of the day, we've said that we are reflecting. Constitutional commissions and independent offices are not referred to as the fourth arm of government without a reason. They actually remind us of good manners, if you like. And if their work is hard, it is because bad manners have become very entrenched. And correcting, you know, when you have, in my language, they say that you can only correct a tree from the bases. Once it grows and it is crooked, then you either have to cut it to make it straight or get it to grow straight again, or just let it grow crooked. And I would like us to hold that picture, because I think that is what constitutional commissions and independent offices are doing when they deliver values and aspirations of the people and engender a culture of accountability in governance and respect for constitutionalism. They complement, but at the same time check excesses of the three arms of government. Because even when we have the three arms of government, as Professor Sihanya will tell you as a professor of constitutional law, when you're talking about separation of powers, it looks sometimes like the separation of powers between the major three arms of government is working. But there is always cracks in between. And I think commissions and independent offices cement those cracks. And they therefore help to make governance a lot more cohesive and a lot more accountable. Constitutional commissions and independent offices, and I think this has been said before, they provide an anchor for the rule of law. When we say the rule of law, we contradistinguish it from the rule of men. Because when you have the rule of law, and I say men deliberately, when you say, to mean both men and women, when you say law rules, it means that we all subject ourselves to particular ideals. If you leave it to the rule of men, then they may actually choose what they want to follow and what they do not want to follow. So rule of law promotes liberties, order, predictability. It restrains actors. You know, we may want to behave in a particular way, like maybe somebody now just wants to sit here, there are rules, that's not law. But you know, if we were left to ourselves, how would we behave? And that is the remit of the rule of law. So if you look at the different issues that the commissions and independent offices deal with, you will see that they are restraining actors, very powerful actors sometimes. They are restraining structures and also institutions and individuals. And if it was left to humans, that would not be possible. People have to submit themselves to the rule of law. I don't think I exaggerate here if I say that constitutions and independent offices are the custodians of the very hallowed aspects of our constitutions, which we wouldn't want to live without. For instance, we all talk about Article 10 on national values and principles of governance. And if you look at what our constitutional commissions and independent offices do, that is really the fodder of what they are doing. If you look at the Bill of Rights, whether you're looking at the Human Rights Commission, or you're looking at the National Gender and Equality Commission, or if you look at integrity, these are things that when the Constitution was being discussed were very dear to Kenyans. And I think also land. You know, in this country, if you talk about land, people listen to you. But when I tell students that people sleep better knowing they own a little piece of land in the desert, even if it is not productive, just land. You know, you tell Kenyans land, they will be with you. And if you don't believe me, look at how many people went to buy land in Turkana when they heard that there was oil. So let us then go down memory lane. And I think when I say remember to remember, it is very important to remember that this culture of having constitutions and independent offices has actually begun to sprout. I'm saying sprout if you're a farmer or a farmer's daughter, as I am. You know, when you graft trees, they either grow or they die. And I like to say that constitutional commissions and independent offices were grafted, but we were actually trying to uproot the bad material, the bad tubers, if they're bananas, that would make the tree sick. And you cannot actually deal with or understand commissions and independent offices without looking at the journey to the 2010 Constitution. And you know, what worries me a lot is that we forget. When you have a particular new idea getting institutionalized, so you have an auditor general or controller of budget who can stand up to the powers that be, we think this is kawaida. It is not. So if we want to consider where commissions are coming from, let us look at the birth of our Constitution and the tears and the blood that were shed for that. And they were actually birthed in the need to contain authoritarianism, because over time, power had become centralized in especially the presidency. There was a joke in FIDA that the president could actually declare you divorced. You know, when we say that, people think it's an exaggeration, but the power that the president had became very enormous. And this is surprising, because when we attained independence, we had been under the rule of colonialists who ruled with a heavy hand. So in getting independence, what our founding fathers, I struggle with founding fathers, but we don't have founding mothers, they actually sought to depart from the colonial government policies. And if you look at our 1969 Constitution, you will see very deliberate attempts to limit governmental powers and avoid too much concentration of power that could be abused. But over time, you know, again, going back to the rule of law, the rule of men. So the rule of law would have held us to follow those tenets of the Constitution. But the rule of men demanded that the Constitution be amended. It doesn't it doesn't align with our needs here, let us change it. And a lot of times it was being changed to strengthen the executive arm of government, which means that even though we had other arms of government, they became subservient to the executive. And this is the malaise that constitutional commissions and independent offices are seeking to do. In fact, there are people at door B. And the High Court, in the case of Njoya, this whole question of hyper amendments, just looking at the way over time the Constitution had been amended and amended until it had now become something that resembled what was the original constitution. And in fact, one of the statements in that judgment by the High Court was that some of these amendments could not be described as anything other than the alteration of the basic structure or features of the Constitution. And of course, when you talk about basic structures in 2022, and this was in I believe it was in 2006, you can see that there are things that people remember, and that memory is what influences the decision we make. If we think that those amendments were general, there are some glaring examples that I'd like to share. One was an amendment in 1986, which abolished the post of the Chief Secretary, which was occupied by the head of public service, and removed security of tenure of the offices of Attorney General and Controller and Auditor General. Another one was in 1988, which removed the security of tenure for commissioners of the Public Service Commission, the High Court judges, and the Court of Appeal judges. And you see, this is just being done with a stroke of the pen. And now when you have a Judicial Service Commission, or you have the Independent Office of the Auditor General, or the Controller of Budget, you can see the kind of power that is given to stand up to that kind of authoritarianism. And this is why, again, I was saying at the beginning, the reason your work is hard is because old habits die hard. So people who have memories of being able to change laws willy-nilly are not going to give up just because a constitution has come. And I'd like to say that to their credit, commissions delivered a new constitutional order and actually protected that nascent constitutional order. Because if it wasn't for the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, we wouldn't have had this constitution that we celebrate. And I'd like also to say that the work that was done by the Constitution Implementation Committee, which both my colleagues and friends, Elizabeth Muli and Kamau Waiganjo sat on, they actually did very fundamental work. We may forget, but if you remember, they were the ones who were at the beginning testing this new framework, because they'd be the ones telling, Mr. President, you are out of order. And you see, we don't have a culture of telling leaders that they are naked. So when you begin to tell leaders that they are naked, then you know you get into trouble. And that is why you get into all these kinds of trouble. But you know what encourages me is that you don't give up. We have all these cases going on. Sometimes, you know, when you look at Wafula Chebukati, you can see the whole weight of Kenya's electoral system on his shoulders. But, you know, don't give up, because it is that spirited fight for the rule of law that Kenyans will remember. It is, they will remember that people came up with a constitution and there were men and women who actually made them work. And it's good that the commissions and independent offices we have now, and I think this was explained by the chair of the forum, Gershon Otachi, they have their independence provided for. And you know, independence, this is also not a very easy space, because I'm sure, again, if you look at the discussions of the CIC at the beginning, these independent commissions, that independent is not an agreed term. And why is it not an agreed term? Because people want to behave how they want to behave, and they don't want to be questioned. I think, again, the objects of the commissions have been clearly laid out. When you have the objective of protecting the sovereignty of the people, how bigger can it get? Because if Kenya has no sovereignty, it doesn't exist. And if you're supposed to ensure that all state organs observe democratic values and principles, you are in every nook and cranny. It is, you know, it is not just in Nairobi, everywhere. You know, you are in every nook and cranny, and you also are supposed to promote constitutionalism. And you know, constitutionalism is a term that we use a lot. But when you think about what it entails, subjecting ourselves to rules, even when we don't like them, then you can see why it is problematic. And if you look at some of the powers that are given to yourselves as chairs and leaders of these commissions, there were actually powers that were vested in the presidency. So how bigger can it get? And what expectations are there of you by Kenyans? I remember being involved in discussions on the National Land Commission. And that was in discussions leading to the national land policy. And one of the things that people kept saying was, those of you who remember the illegal and irregular allocation of public land, and the way they talk about even Kenyatta Avenue had gone, we would not have even processional way because it had gone. And when they were discussing it, you know, I was taken aback when I realized that Kenyans were thinking of a commission that could even hold radical title. And you know, I'm saying that, you know, radical title, it is the title of a Kenya when all of us are gone. You know, we all have our little titles, but radical title is that broad title. And that idea went on for quite a while. People wanted the National Land Commission to be able to hold, especially because a lot of the land was being given out by the president. You remember the green pen, that people even learned to fake the president's title, use a green pen and give land. And a joke is told about how a former commissioner went and told the former president, God rest his soul in peace, Mzee, ata State House imeenda. So if you think that you're dealing with little things, it's actually very big. So basically, the powers that tended to be usurped, abused by the presidency, are the ones that you've been charged to actually oversee. So you're talking about revenue allocation. So I cannot refuse to give you revenue because I don't like you, because we are subject to the rule of law, not the rule of men. And then financial and administrative powers of a parliament and judiciary, creation and abolition of offices in the public service. So you can't wake up now and tell us TSC does not exist. How? Because there is a process that you need to and then altering administrative boundaries. That was something that you could actually do willy-nilly, but now you can't. So in this sense, you have yourselves as, the commissions that we have in independent offices, reducing the potential for abuse of authorities. And how are we doing? I think starting again with remember to remember, and the fact that you're dealing with institutionalized bad manners. So how we are, many of the commissions and independent offices have had to jostle for space as older norms, actors, structures, and institutions resist the birthing of the new order. And some of these contests have gone to court, and I'd like to just salute all the commissions and independent offices that have gone to court for determination on different things. And I think the CIC did this a lot at the beginning because we were trying to breathe life into the constitutional commissions. I will not go into the details, but you know, I think some deserve mention. You know, like when the Auditor General calls out arms of government on the way they are spending money, or when the National Gender and Equality Commission, you know, everybody thinks, hey, these women are tiring us. They are always saying there must be gender. But you see, once you agree, then you cannot agree today and you disagree tomorrow. So if you're political parties and you don't want women, then you should have said that before the constitution was passed. And of course, we've also seen the National Land Commission being asked to withdraw titles, and actually very diplomatically saying, we are going to investigate, because it is no longer business as usual to just do what you have. Or even the National Police Commission, when you recruit officers and then people go to court, because you know, rule of law doesn't just bind others, it binds the commissions as well. So if you're told this is not what you should have done, then one must abide by it. And then you're told now there is a national crisis, to wit, the Garissa University crisis. We want all those people you hired, so the court has said that they were not regularly taken on, brought on. Then you must actually challenge that. And I think CIC did a lot of that. Then there is the, money has no satiation point. So the person who deals with the salaries and revenue, and remuneration, everybody wants more money. And, somebody will say, we want more money, but we are not making more money. And my heart goes out to the person who chairs this, because everybody is pulling at them to give them more money. And then, of course, there are the ill-mannered parliamentarians who will say, we will revisit. So when you go to get money from them, they will cut your feet so that you're not able to do the work that you're supposed to do. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that constitution commissions and independent offices have breathed new life into different aspects of our lives. And they've actually brought constitutionalism. It may look, where you see it, you may think it is so difficult, but you have done something. And what you have done is important. If you look at our public finance management, our public land management, I think people say that now there is a lot less allocation of public land than there was. If you look at the Dongo Committee report of 2004, it is a huge document. And I remember a colleague telling me, you can't be an important person, Patricia, because your name is not there. So I hadn't been allocated land illegally. But now, since 2004, we have a lot less than that. You, as commissions and independent offices, provide anchorage for ethics, integrity, and good governance. And sometimes we think that because Chapter 6 was not fully implemented, that we have lost. We haven't. Because people still demand that we need to have more integrity. There is quite a lot of ground you have covered. You've made a lot of progress. There is still ground to be covered. But then if there was no ground to be covered, then we should all go home and say, the way, after the Constitution was passed in 2017, some of us talking about land and gender, we thought now we can sleep because the things are in the Constitution, but we saw that constitutions don't implement themselves. So we need to guard the ground covered, and I think the chair said that, and recover any lost ground. And I'd like to challenge, again, the National Gender and Equality Commission to carve out the equality mandate, because the equality mandate covers everything. Because it is where you're talking about allocation of resources. So gender is important, yes, but equality goes to very many other places. I thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll agree with me that was wonderful. It was well researched, full of rich content, and very well delivered. Let us give her 3 factorials. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, then 1. Okay? Let's start. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, Professor Kamau Mbote. Our online participants, thank you very much for joining us, and those physically present as well, thank you for making this session a wonderful session. Allow me to thank the distinguished guests who are about to leave the stage. Allow me to recognize once again Mr. Gashom Otachi, the chairperson of the Chairpersons Forum of the CCIOs and also chairman of the National Lands Commission. Allow me to appreciate Professor Kamau Mbote for giving us a wonderful keynote address. Allow me to appreciate Brian Omondi for representing Professor Stephen Kiama, the Vice Chancellor of University of Nairobi. Allow me to appreciate as well Professor Winfred Kamau. Thank you so much, and as they leave the stage, we will have an 8 minutes documentary of the CCIOs. And we'll be calling the panelists on stage. Asanteni sana. Let's give them a clap as they leave the stage. Is the documentary ready? Allow me to invite in front Mr. Wafula Chebukati, the chairman of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission for the Pillar 1 Administrative and Governance. Allow me also to invite on the stage the vice chairperson of the Chairpersons Forum of the CCIOs, Honorable Florence Kajuju, under the Justice and Legal Pillar. Allow me to invite CPA Nancy Gadhungu, Auditor General, under the Pillar Financial Prudence and Oversight. Allow me to invite Dr. Joyce Mwikali Mutinda, Chairperson, National Gender and Equality Commission for the Human Rights Pillar 4. Let's give them a hand of applause as they come in front. And as they do so, we'll play the documentary. It's just about 8 minutes. Thank you.
I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of us to the 8th Congress, which is organized by the Forum for the Constitutional and Independent Officers. We thank you, and also thank the Almighty God for enabling us to meet here this morning. The 8th Congress presents another crucial platform for all of us to reflect on gains made, challenges encountered, and the way forward in pursuit of the values and ideals embedded in our Constitution.
To the people of Kericho, these commissions are here to listen to you on how service delivery is being implemented in Kericho. Please feel free to interact with them, tell them where we failed as a government of Kericho, tell them what needs to be improved, and where we've done well, please tell them that we've also done well in those aspects.
But we built the theme of the Congress around our mandate, and that is why this year we selected the theme, promoting accountability and access to quality public services. We believe that everything we do should be reflected in quality public services. And until you can feel it, until you can see enhancements in service delivery, then we are not exactly where we ought to be. We want to walk away with proposals and recommendations on how we can serve you better.
It is my profound pleasure to join you today on this occasion of the 8th Annual Congress of the Forum of Chairpersons of Constitutional Commissions and Independent Officers. Ladies and gentlemen, we recognize the contribution of the independent commissions in fostering our democratic growth. Various commissions have been very instrumental in guiding the implementation of Chapter 11 of the Constitution. The successful implementation of the devolved system of government is as a result of your timeless work. For this, I, on behalf of the national government, would like to appreciate your immense efforts and contribution in this regard. Each commission and office is a vital brick in the towering edifice of the better Kenya which we are building.
The annual Congress for us is very, very important. Our Congress starts with a public forum. It is a day when we invite all members of the public to come and engage with us.
A lot of the time, people don't understand what commissions do. So being here helps us to just understand what is happening in the counties, but also for them to understand what we do. And that way, they will be able to be the citizens on the ground on our behalf who can tell us what is happening and helps to improve what we do.
It's important for us to join the other constitutional commissions so that we can strengthen each other and get modes of referring our problems to each other. When I say problems, is when we are performing our mandate.
For the county government of Kericho, we have worked with almost all the constitutional offices in this country. And we are serving our second term now. And since 2013, they have been able to unlock for us a lot of bottlenecks that we may have had. They've been able to advise us. They've been able to work with us. So we appreciate the fact that the Constitution says that we exist in a spirit of consultation and cooperation with the national government. So to see them in real, to see the people that we always see on TV here debating with the public has been such a pleasure.
Madam Honorable Kajuju, the Ombudsman is the refuge of citizens who feel aggrieved by poor public service delivery. So we want to know to what extent has your commission lived up to the slogan, Hata Mnyonge Ana Haki?
We oversight the national government and the county governments and the public servants. You as a citizen might be a public servant also employed, but the bosses decide to sack you without giving you an opportunity to be able to plead your case or to defend yourself. Because it is expensive to go to court, we the Ombudsman don't tell you to go to court. You come to us, we engage the person who has aggrieved you, the public servant who has aggrieved you, and we make sure either you are reinstated to work or you are compensated for the time that you are supposed to be at work.
Well, this is my third year in the Congress. I haven't seen us do CSR, but we thought, why not do something to touch people's lives? And again, someone asked, why the prison? And I think what we've heard, someone told us that something like soap in a prison is a luxury. And remember, in prison, particularly a women's prison, there are children who are there simply because their mothers are there. And we thought, wow, just imagine what a life. You're in prison not because you did anything wrong, but you're born by someone who was in prison. And we thought it would be a good way to touch the mothers and the children.
Leo hii tumefika hapa kujumuika nanyi kwa sababu hata nyinyi muna marights.
Na tumewaletea kitu kidogo, tutaomba muipokee, na nitaita mwenyekiti wa SRC Madam Rim Begich awapatie on our behalf. Madam Rim.
Tukipokea hizo zawadi zetu, tuseme shukrani kwa wageni wetu. Bado kuna wageni wetu wengine wanakuja. All visitors are welcome at the podium. Tafadhali tupatie wageni wetu viti.
almost every commission seems to be going through the inadequacy of the funds that are provided by the government from National Treasury. And because of the competing needs of the nation, it would be unreasonable for any of us to expect to get enough money for their function. So the issue of coming up with innovative strategies of implementing our role, our functions with the little that is available came home very clearly.
It was really gratifying for us to see that devolution is working, that there is a lot happening in this county. I know some of my colleagues went to the hospitals and some went to see a lot of other development. So it was really a testament of the importance of devolution, and that if we can have more money being devolved in terms of releasing money from wage bill, a lot more will happen in the counties.
Mwananchi is the best auditor.
We haven't scratched the surface. We've tried to do outreach, but there is a lot of outreach to be done. There is need to devolve to all the counties. Because of the usual budgetary constraints, we've not been able to get to every county. We are in 8 regions, and those 8 regions cover a huge geographical area.
Thank you very much, the technical
Recording
team.
stopped.
That was the 8th Annual Congress for the CCIOs that took place in Kericho in 2019. It was a wonderful event. Allow me to introduce to you the moderator for this session, none other than Mr. Kamau Waiganjo, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He holds both a bachelor's and master's of law degrees from the University of Nairobi and a certificate in public finance and decentralization from Duke University, USA. Currently, Mr. Kamau is undertaking a PhD in law at the University of Nairobi, and he has been in private practice for over 30 years, handling commercial, constitutional, and administrative law. Let us put our hands together and welcome Mr. Kamau Waiganjo.
Thank you very much. I was going to say that in places where they respect devolution, I'm called Your Excellency. First Your Excellency and then First Gentleman. Thank you. The chair of this forum, who's also the chair of the National Land Commission, the various chairs who are present and members in Kenyan language, all protocol observed. Let me say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate in this forum and to spend the next couple of minutes helping us reflect and to remember by asking a couple of questions to you as chairs of the various commissions and independent offices. And I start where Professor Mbote left, and I believe also the chair of this forum mentioned, which is about the reason, the objectives for which these institutions were set up and given the independence and even constitutionally guaranteed funding, even though I know there are challenges there. And that is because the mandate that the institutions were given is clearly spelled out in Article 249. And that mandate, if I'm to remind us, and I'm sure we're all familiar, is to protect the sovereignty of the people, to secure the observance by all state organs of democratic values and principles, and number 3, to promote constitutionalism. So the question I want to ask each one of you is how has the understanding of this broad mandate of these offices, that is, to protect the sovereignty of the people, to secure the observance by state organs of the democratic values and principles, and to promote constitutionalism, how has that informed the way you carry out your mandate as independent offices and constitutional commissions? And related to that, how would you rate your performance in terms of ensuring that these three principles are met? And I say this remembering
that the commissions and independent were not just another bureaucracy. They were not just an extension of the bureaucracy. They were set up with a specific objective in mind in the understanding of Kenyans. To what extent, in the carrying out of your mandate, have you been able to meet these three objectives? And I'll ask each of you to just give 5 minutes. We'll have time to reflect later, even on plenary. So even if you're not able to say everything, there'll be opportunity to elaborate later. So, and I think I'll start with Prof. with you. Karibu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope I'm loud enough because the mic did not pick up. Now, I chair the National Gender and Equality Commission, and as I observe all protocols, because some of my professors are around, my colleague chairs, and my advocate on record, as he stands up, the first His Excellency, the first gentleman of Kirinyaga County. I want to recognize that. Let me begin by what he had just said, 249. And I had actually tagged that because I knew this is where we are going to discuss. And I want to start on number 2, not even number 1. And that is securing the observance by all state organs of democratic values and principles. I am part of Article 59 commissions, and these are the human rights organizations. So how have we made sure that the government is on its toes? There are very many ways that we have done that. And I'm talking of the 3 organizations, that is the National Gender and Equality Commission, the CAJ, Commission on Administrative Justice, whose chair is just seated at the stage, and then the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. These are national human rights institutions. So when it comes to the political arm, have we made sure that they are on their toes? Yes. I'll give you an example. When our own National Assembly did not take care, for example, of the human beings called children, and they were supposed to have a creche in that National Assembly, we called out the Speaker. And this was done overnight. As I talk to you now, there is a creche in our National Assembly. In the Continental House, we have been telling them, bring it to the main house. Now, that is the political arm. I know there has been a lot of battles on that. When it came to the judicial arm of government, what have we done? All of us knew there was going to be a CJ, and there was going to be nominations, and there was going to require normal administration. And we wanted information offered to all of us. And we said, the composition of the Supreme Court, this is how it goes. So what happened? We gave advisories. And I'm glad today, as I talk to you, that we have observed 2/3. What about the executive? Sorry, I'm an appointee of His Excellency the President, but he has adhered to the 2/3. I can stand up and clap for him. Because when you look at the 21 cabinet secretaries, 7 have been women. How did he do that? It's because of the many advisories that we do on behalf of Kenyans. So when it comes to number 2, just to get back to what His Excellency here told us, number 2, we have taken care of that. What about the sovereignty? That is the number 1, to protect the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. Do we take care of the Wanjikos of the day? This is where I must say the national human rights organizations dance very well, because it doesn't matter where this human being is. They will incur very little expense because we do alternative dispute resolution. And we take it to every part of this country, despite the fact that we may not have adequate funding. So where do we get the funding? We have gone as far as getting partners to work with us. And we don't only protect them within the country, we make sure that the international instruments that have been ratified by the country are followed. I don't want to single out that because I was told we'll come back to that. The last one that I want to speak to is promoting constitutionalism.
we sing and shout and say, all of us must follow the Constitution. I want to single out chapter 4, it's the one on rights. Now, in chapter 4, there are rights of older members of society, for example. And then these had not been actualized because we did not have policy. We did not sit back. We went to the relevant ministry. At that point, it was labor and social protection. Now the older members have gone to public service, and older members, they have moved. But what we did was to make sure that the policy does exist. It's not only for older members, but also for other groups. We also made sure that the legislation is going to exist. Now, when the legislation did not come forward quickly, we pushed Kenya government, and I must say this loudly, to ratify the Africa Human and People's Rights Charter on the rights of older members of society. And this instrument was deposited after ratification in February this year. So we have been doing that. So it is not like we sit back. We look at all this and ensure that the Constitution is followed. And I want to draw our attention to Article 2. Sorry, I'm not an advocate. I've never been a lawyer. But Article 2 of our Constitution, Sub-Article 6, it domesticates all the conventions and the treaties that the country has ratified. Have we made sure that the country is complying? Yes. We make sure that they do reporting. The most recent one was CSW, where they were reporting on CEDAW on matters women, because CEDAW has been ratified by Kenya. I know Kenya did not report for CRC last year, but the report was released because that department was in transition. And next week, we shall be checking whether they are taking care of the older members of society. Thereafter, CRPD on persons with disability, and I can go on and go on. We hold the government to account. Even on small matters like Agipo, we make sure that something is done. And when it is not done, we try ADR. When ADR does not work, we have competent legal officers. Each of us has got more or less a department. So we go to court, public litigation. And some of us who remember, NGEC went to court in 2019 because of MCAs. This matter came up in Nakuru. But when it was resolved, because the MCAs were not getting, the nominated MCAs were not getting their rights, they were not getting the money, they were not getting the resources they were supposed to get. And this was all because of some SRC circular. That circular has since been changed so that it takes care of them. And these people are now very happy with us. And I can see the moderator wants to take the mic from me. But since he's my advocate on record, I'll respect him, but tell you that the national human rights institutions in this country, NGEC, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and CAJ are up to the task, money or no money. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've allowed Dr. Mutinda a little more latitude. She's my client. I understand the side of my bread that is buttered. But I want us to stick to the 5 minutes so that we're able to, even these people want to participate in the discussion, Chair. And as you answer the question, look at it also from the perspective of the public. If the public were analyzing your institution in terms of compliance, would they say the same thing? Would they have the same attitude, the same opinion, the same evaluation as yours? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. The first gentleman. I think I'll go straight to the question and starting the words of Professor Kambote, remember to remember. Of course, as a commission, our journey is long, and we were birthed by the 2010 Constitution to be where we are. In terms of the objects of constitutional commissions and independent offices, the aspect of the sovereignty of the people, which number one is, of course, looking back to Article 1, where power belongs to the people. And they can exercise the power either directly or through selected representatives. This is through Parliament, that's National Assembly or Senate, through the county assemblies. And the midwife for these processes then becomes the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. This one of the commissions then that created that clamor for the constitutional change in 2010. Remember 2007, 2008, the violence that we had arose as a result of the management of elections. And in doing managing the sovereignty of the people aspect, then we come in to manage elections and referenda, and we do this through the legislative framework that we have. We have the Elections Act, we have a number of many other statutes, and what then we do is, as a commission, we came up, for example, for purpose of the upcoming 9th of August general elections, we came up with a strategic plan and election operation plan, which is based on the existing legal framework. And this then election operation plan has timelines that we are following to the letter that will lead us to the 9th of August general election. So the sovereignty of the people is in terms of managing elections, referenda, and the delimitation of boundaries is what we do, and we do it in accordance with the existing legal framework. Then in terms of the democratic values and principles, how do we secure them? As a commission, as I said, we have our strategic plan. We're managing through the structures we have. Our structure starts with the commission at the commission level. We have the 6 commissioners and the chair. Then we have directorates. And down to the county level, we have 47 county election managers in the 47 counties. And at the constituency level, we have 290 senior election officers at the constituency level and the assistants. So that's the structure of the commission. We reach out to the people at all levels. We engage the Kenyans at all levels. And we are involved then in engaging them in matters of educating them on the processes of elections. And I believe that at the level of engagement, despite the limitation of resources, we're doing the best we can. And in all this, then, we do everything to promote constitutionalism. Most of the time, we are the ones who are taken to court. The Kenyans don't really wait for us to go to court about anything. They're always litigating about everything to do with the elections. And in the process of this litigation, then, a lot of jurisprudence has come up as it relates to the election management, and especially on matters that the Constitution gives us the mandate. Of course, Article 88 is very clear on our mandate. We have about 11 mandates, and we carrying out all of them. At the end of the day, then, as a commission, we are also involved in dispute resolution. Soon we shall be having party primaries. After that, we shall have nomination of candidates, and the issues that will come out of there are normally disputes that arise out of nomination. The commission has structures to manage those disputes relating to nominations. So I believe that we are on top of things as far as these aspects are concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Kajuju. Honorable Kajuju.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, our first gentleman, and our protocols observed. In answering your question, our moderator, I would just refer to what Professor Bote said, that these commissions and independent offices were brought in place because of the bad manners that were present then. And I believe the commissions were there to bring hygiene in the manner in which administration of justice was being effected. So as a commission on the administrative justice, we look at the hygiene in public service. Our business is to check on maladministration and abuse of office and delay in offering public service. And we check what the public servants do generally to ensure that they offer service to the citizens. One of the issues that we've dealt with in as far as ensuring that there is hygiene in public service is where senior government officials have grabbed, even lard, have refused to offer service to vulnerable Kenyans. And there is a case that was brought to us about a lady whose lad had been taken by a governor in this country. And when we investigated and we forwarded our report to the county assembly, the report was used to impeach that governor. And when he moved to the Senate and our report was looked at, the Senate upheld the impeachment of that governor. So it is as bad as that, that we can proceed and ensure that senior government officials who in their positions and in their use of power grab or take away that which belongs in the citation register, that what the ombudsman has declared as unfit to hold public office then stands in as far as those positions are concerned. We also work with judiciary on access to information, because what we do is ensure that Kenyans are able to receive information under the Access to Information Act and Article 35 of the Constitution, and we are the ones who implement the access to information. And access to information is also related to access to justice. And our business is to ensure that we offer alternative dispute resolution. So we work with the judiciary to make sure that we are able to negotiate, arbitrate, and mediate, and the judiciary has been able to even refer some of the cases that they deal with to the Office of the Ombudsman, so that we are able to resolve amicably and without the expense that normally comes with litigation and the adversarial system. We also look at elections. We know that around this time, there is a lot of wastage in government in terms of misuse of public resources. We want to check, and as the Ombudsman, we are going to have clearance that we're going to issue to persons who are vying. If you have, you've been a public officer, and at any point in time, at the point maybe you resigned, you are abusing public office. That is what the Office of the Ombudsman will look at. We have a tool that we have established to check on how then we are going to clear these aspirants who have worked in government. But we are also going to check, to monitor and evaluate in the course of the elections who are the public officers who will be misusing maybe motor vehicles or any other government resources towards their personal satisfaction or their personal goals. So according to me, and in my own perspective, I believe that the Constitutional Commissions are there. When Kenyans were passing the Constitution in 2010, the clarion call was, kama sio sasa, ni sasa hivi. Ukweli ama sio ukweli? That is what we do every day of our lives to ensure that the Constitution is respected. We promote constitutionalism, and the beauty of the commissions is that we work together. There's a lot of collaboration. In fact, we have a committee that we formed with the Commission IEBC, and we also have a partnership with the National Gender and Equality Commission to ensure that not only do we collaborate
but we also serve Kenyans because all of us have the common goal of ensuring that the Constitution is protected and is promoted. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Madam Auditor General, I'll adjust the question to you just slightly. Your office has been an independent office for many years. There's a time that that independence was removed, but it's generally been an independent office. How would you rate the performance of that office differently before 2010 and after 2010? What difference has the provisions of Article 249 made in the way that that office carries out its responsibilities? Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator, my fellow chairs, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The office of the Auditor General indeed is an independent office, and the office has been enshrined in the Constitution, even in the independent Constitution that we had before the 2010 Constitution. But there was a difference with the previous Constitution and the current Constitution in terms of the mandate. That the mandate is now spelled out very, very clearly under Article 229. The Constitution goes ahead to list all the entities that the Auditor General has responsibility to audit. And in case of any doubt, the Constitution also adds that any entity that receives public funds is under the purview of the Auditor General, without a doubt. Most significant of all, Article 2296 requires the Auditor General to confirm that every public money spent, indeed we say every shilling spent of public money, has been spent lawfully and effectively, that it has an effect on the lives and livelihoods of the people, and that it has been spent in accordance with the law. That is the emphasis that the Constitution has given on the mandate of the Office of the Auditor General. To speak to our performance with regard to protecting the sovereignty of the people, securing the observance of all state organs of democratic values and principles, and promoting constitutionalism. I would also want to refer to Professor Kamau, who said the citizen is the first auditor. And that is why the Constitution says that all sovereign power belongs to the people. And as an audit office, that is where we start. Are the people consulted? Are the people involved when it comes to the use and management of their resources? When it comes to the determination of the projects that are being implemented to improve their lives? Do they speak to their actual needs? When it comes to service delivery, is there sustainability? That the people will have quality service delivery today and quality service delivery tomorrow for their children. And that is the work we do in the course of audit. And what we've done in that area is that now we're involving the citizens during audits. We have established what we call a citizen accountability audit, where we work with the citizens that beyond looking at the records that are presented to us, both at the national and sub-national level, beyond looking at the figures and whether they balance or not, or whether they are supported or not, we ask the citizen, what difference has the use of that money made in your life? We have also been working closely with a number of key institutions. We've entered into memorandum of understandings. To give an example, the Kenya Revenue Authority, that is charged with the mandate of collecting revenue. And when we are auditing the various institutions, we are checking, are the taxes being remitted to the Kenya Revenue Authority? Because it is a cycle that you remit taxes, you collect taxes, you remit taxes, and the same taxes come back to provide services and to bring development to the country. We have been working very closely with the stakeholders, both the institutions that we audit and other stakeholders, to understand what their needs are with regard to the impact of our work. And that has culminated with us slightly refocusing our strategic plan to ensure that we pay attention to what the needs are from the various stakeholders, so that our work becomes more relevant and addresses the actual issues that are affecting the country. I would like to just take us through very briefly on that is implemented by the government involves the use of public resources. And our reports that we audit must confirm that those resources, first and foremost, were adequately budgeted for. Secondly, they were planned for. Third, they were spent in accordance to what was planned for. They were accounted for. And here, moderator and colleagues, I'd like to say that audit is evidence-based. If you cannot support the use and management of resources, then you're going to have a disagreement, and I'm being very polite here, with the auditor. There will be an audit query. That accounting and recording is critical with regard to public resources. So taking us through the PFM, we start, today is a budget day. The first question we ask, and this is a tool that we have recently implemented called the Public Finance Management Reporting Framework Tool. How did you estimate the growth of the economy that led to the estimates of the growth of the revenue, which we are now using for budget purposes? We start from there, and we follow through. Budget approval, budget execution, accounting and reporting, and follow up on the issues that are raised. I would like to end by saying that when public resources are not used in a prudent way, in a transparent way, or openly and with information out there to the people, then it can affect democracy in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I allowed a little more latitude to Auditor General because I recognize that it's not an office that we interact with quite often, and I think it's important for us to understand their mandate and how it fits within the constitutional framework. Now, I wanted you to hear, first, can we give a significant clap to those, to our panelists? I wanted you to hear their voices first before I introduce them, so this was deliberate. So I'll do very quick introductions at who are the people who've been addressing you. And I'll start with the Vice Chair of the Forum, Honorable Florence Kajuju, who's the Chair of the CAJ, the Commission on Administrative Justice. She is the second Ombudsman after Honorable Otiende Amolo. She's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with over 25 years experience in the bar. Holds an LLB degree from the University of Nairobi and a diploma from the Kenya School of Law. Before she was appointed, you do know that she was the woman representative for Meru County in the 11th Parliament, and has been a former Vice Chair of the Law Society of Kenya. In Parliament, Honorable Kajuju was the Chair of the Committee on Regional Integration and Administrative Ad Hoc Committee on MIRA, obviously understanding where Honorable Kajuju comes from. And she's the Secretary General of the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association and board member of the African Ombudsman Research Center. Bukati Chair IEBC, holds an MBA from Kenyatta University, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture, and a Bachelor of Law from the University of Nairobi, and a postgraduate diploma from the Kenya School of Law. Has been in practice for over 31 years in litigation, dispute resolution, conveyancing, maritime and treaties. I know he used to practice in Mombasa. Works as a full-time chair of the commission and chairs the Dispute Resolution Committee of the Electoral Code of Conduct Committee. The Auditor General, CPA Nancy Gathungu, she was appointed, as you know, she's the second Auditor General under the Constitution after Auditor Edward Ouko, and she was appointed in 2020. She holds a Masters of Business Administration and Bachelor of Commerce, and she's a CPA-K and a Certified Information Systems Auditor. She's a member of the Association of Women Accountants in Kenya and has vast experience in public sector auditing, strategic management, capacity building for Supreme Audit Institution. And finally, Dr. Joyce Mwikali Mutinda, Chair of the GEC, the National Gender Inequality Commission. She's an accomplished educationist, gender analyst, certified professional mediator, quality auditor, and she holds a Master of Arts degree in gender analysis in development from the University of Eastern Anglia in the UK, and a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of Nairobi. Prior to her appointment, Dr. Mutinda was the chair of the Rongo University Council. She has served in over 15 public institutions in the education sector and the civil service, and undertaken numerous local, regional, and international consultations. She has published several books and has served at community level in various capacities in the boards of management of various institutions. Dr. Mutinda is an avid reader and writer, cherishes mentoring the youth, motivating the girl child, and I believe once in a health, the boy child, and women, conserving the environment and advocating for uptake of renewable energy. And she loves singing. We're not going to ask her to do that today, but if you get an opportunity, do listen to her sing. She's a great singer. Now, as we continue with our discussions, we'll try and make the next responses pretty short so that we have time to engage our audience. The question I want to ask is, an analysis was done in South Africa. They call them, I believe, Chapter 9 institutions. They're similar to Kenya's Chapter 15 institutions. An analysis was done, I think, in their 15th year. And what they discovered was that the first commissions, their first, I believe, 6 years, they were very vibrant, holding government accountable, establishing their position as defenders of the public interest. But I think government then realized that these institutions were going to be a problem. And so what then followed is that in the next appointments, there was state capture. And the state was very involved and very interested in who was joining those commissions, and where the wrong people joined, then they used the various tools they have, including denying you funding and all the other possibilities that government had to execute its mandate. It then said that by the third limb of the commissions, they had started to regain their public stature. And we've seen that in the public protector, the public defender, and the work they've done in South Africa. And my question, I'll ask probably Honorable Kajuju and Chair GEC. I'm going to ask, how would you rate the performance of the commissions between their inception and where they are, in terms of the objective sometimes of the state to manage institutions that try and carry out oversight? Has the state been successful? To what extent? Where has it not been successful? What are the tools that you can use to challenge that objective of the state? And I'll ask Honorable Kajuju to do that. I think, Chair IEBC, I'll ask you a different question. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good. Thank you for that question. I think it's very important, because that will be then probably the perspective of citizens. How then we respond to the issues of the citizens, And first of all, let me begin by saying, for the last 3 years that I've worked in the commission, I've not received a call from anyone. Those people who are seen in government asking me or directing me or controlling me on what to do. So as far as that is concerned, I believe that our independence is still something that we cherish as commissions and something that we protect. And within the Chairs Forum, one of the things that we protect and we talk to the chairs is if there is any interference, it is our duty as the Chairs Forum to protect the institutions. And this is what we did during the BBI, because there was the issue of some of the commissions being affected in as far as the changes that were being brought to the constitution then. We went before the task force and protected the independence of the commissions in as far as the proposed amendments were being made that were affecting each and every one of us in as far as our independence was concerned. I believe that it's not about the choice of leadership. It is about the person who has been appointed to sit on that position. We respect and uphold and cherish the founders of these institutions. We know there was the first generation of commissioners, and they did a good job. But those times were different in the sense that they were establishing the commissions. What we experience now is not what they were experiencing at that time, especially if I speak to the issue of budgets. There is a Senate resolution that demands that the ombudsman must be established in every county office. For us to be able to implement the Senate resolution, we must get the money, because the citizen requires service at mashinani, huduma mashinani. If you don't have the money, then the citizen will not feel the ombudsman in each and every region within this country. And that is where problems arise. So the issue is not state capture. I don't think that is a term that is applicable in these constitutional commissions and independent offices as speaking from the ombudsman's point of view. I believe that wherever we moved as the ombudsman and sought for information and sought for action, that has been done. But what I think should happen much more, so that the citizen is able to appreciate and also be able to utilize the commissions, is to allow these commissions to decentralize, to be able to get to the lowest level of governance, especially now with devolution. The ombudsman is supposed to oversight the national government and the county governments. You cannot oversight county governments if the only place you are in is 4 regions or 4 counties out of 47 counties. So what we are asking in each and every budget that we propose, we always ask for funds for us to be able to decentralize and oversight the counties when it comes to the 30% procurement. How is it that the governors are giving out these tenders, and to whom? Because they are supposed to report, they are supposed to give that information proactively. We call it proactive disclosure. So this is when maybe from that perspective, the citizens might not be able to understand exactly what the commissions are doing if we are not closer to the mwananchi who is supposed to benefit from our services. So generally speaking, I believe these commissions have done their part. They will be judged when their time comes to exit the stage. But from the resources that we have, from the presence that we have in the various counties, we are doing the best that we can, but the state has never interfered, as far as I'm concerned, with the office of the ombudsman. And we are ready to protect our independence, if at all that happens. Thank you.
On a related note, and I'll ask this, I think, to Dr. Mutinda. Article 249 is a sort of corporate mandate when all of you are speaking earlier, you talked about how that mandate has been achieved by the individual institutions. What are the structures that exist to ensure that as a corporate of CCIOs, that you're working together to be the voice of the people? Because part of the mandate is to ensure that as a commission, you're also playing that as commissions, you're playing that corporate role. And how has that worked? Have you been successful? Has there been challenges? Corporately working together to achieve Article 249 mandate. And let me just mention that when I was introducing Chair Wafula Chebukati, I failed to mention that he's also the president of the General Assembly of the Association of African Election Authorities, which is a privilege for us as a country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question, and I hope I'm loud enough. I don't know whether it is speaking. Now, structures. Let me begin by talking about the structures. The first structure came into being in 2012 in May, and I want to thank those who were there then, Nyachai, Amolo. They came up with the Chairs Forum. In that forum, we are able to interact and map out ways of working together. I'll give an example of 3 commissions that worked together in one of our counties called Kisii. When there were problems in Kisii, the National Gender and Equality Commission, together with the Commission on Revenue Allocation and the Ombudsman, went to Kisii to try and arbitrate because of finances going in a different direction and not where they were supposed to be. Now, from the point of view of CRA, we were able to say this is what was given to this county. Getting back to control our budget, we were able to say, yes, this money was utilized in this place. But from the people on the ground, starting from the MCAs, that money had not gone to the pockets that it was supposed to go to. I'm sorry, as we were there and trying to deal with that matter, Honorable Kajuju remembers, the county assembly was banned, that one of Kisii. But that did not deter us from going on and completing the mission, because we had documents that we had carried with us, and we were able to resolve that. So we are able to work together. Now, what is the other structure that we have, apart from this forum that came into being in 2012? We have our constitutive acts. And if you check, for example, Article 59 constitutions, those that deal with human rights, one of their functions is to work together with each other. And therefore, we have to have some referral, a way of referring our own Kenyans from one commission to the other. Other than just working together, there is that person who will come to me and tell me, you see, I think I'm being discriminated. When actually what they want to say is that I was not promoted at the right time, but so and so was promoted. That looks very much like discrimination. But this is being done in government, is in this maladministration, and therefore I have to call in my sister and we deal with it. Now, recently, there was, for example, the issue of registering, voter registration. The voters were being registered, and some people were not reached, had to reach areas. So what did we do? We left our lofty offices and went out to the field, and we kept telling our brother, and soon he's getting another report. He got a report from Ombudsman. There is another one from NGEC, and we told him, the little money you give these people for transport makes them not go to the hard-to-reach areas. And therefore, some Kenyans, their rights have been violated. They want to be voters, they are not voters. So using our constitutive acts, we are able to do that. But there is another area that I want to say has been very interesting. We are supposed to reach all the Kenyans. That is what is expected of us. But since we have not been reaching all the Kenyans because of something called budgetary constraints, we have devised a way of working together. The offices in Garissa for NGEC also are the offices for the Ombudsman. Tomorrow, and this is very current, offices in Isiolo for Ombudsman will also be offices shared with NGEC. In fact, we are moving there after this meeting. So we have learned to share resources. Not only are we using the act, but we are also saying, if this is what we are doing and we have no resources, then we need also to share the little that we have. But we have faced some problems, which I said, if you give me time, because you are my advocate on record, I will say those ones. Thank you.
I'll give you an opportunity at the end. Chair IEBC, we have an election in a couple of months. What more would it take for you as an institution to be able to promise the Republic of Kenya that in terms of your powers under Article 249 and the independence, and I believe a supportive funding that you have, that you would deliver a constitutionally compliant election? What would you require? Or are all the resources and support that are needed available? And what is the support then you would require then from these, your sister and brother institutions to be able to promise Kenyans a constitutionally compliant election? Thank you.
Thank you, Ganjo, for that question. I can see you spared me the other question, which is okay. Yes, elections are on the 9th of August this year. As a commission, and I mentioned this earlier, we are following our election operation plan to the letter. And so far, so good. We are where we are supposed to be as per the election operations plan. We, of course, had challenges with the budget, where we required an amount of 40.9 billion to manage the entire election. We have so far been given that 6.5 billion. There's still
there's a deficit, but we are working within the budget we have, and I can mention now that the processes that require to be done as far as preparation for elections are so far in good shape. First is the issue of the register of voters. As my sister has mentioned, we did voter registration, the enhanced continuous voter registration phase 1 and 2, and we are still going on with the continuous voter registration as we speak. It's still going on at the constituency level. But as we do this, we are then compiling the register, doing what we call deduplication. Deduplication involves removing multiple records, and then soon we shall hand over these records to the auditors to do an audit. There's an audit firm which has been contracted to carry out audit. And all this is in preparation for another phase of the register, which is verification of the voters' details. This should be done sometimes by next month. So the details of the dates for verification will be rolled out after the audit has been done. So that is as far as the register is concerned. As far as the polling day is concerned, procurement has been done. Almost 95% procurement of strategic and non-strategic materials has been completed. This is quite a great improvement from where we were in 2017. Litigations around procurement have also been finalized. Currently, we don't have any litigation directly affecting procurement, and all the goods have been ordered. Remember, the only goods that we order last minute is the ballot papers, which will be ordered sometimes in July, once we know how many candidates we have and the details of the candidates. Candidates who want to, aspirants who want to buy will appear before the commission in respect of the positions they want to hold. between 29th of May and 7th of June. So after that, then we shall compile the records and order the ballot papers. So procurement, so far, so good. And generally, all systems are good. As far as I'm concerned, I can confirm to the country that IEBC is ready to hold the 9th of August 2022 general elections. However, you talked about support from my colleagues. I want to confirm that we are working very closely with other institutions. We remember we can't do this election alone. We need other agencies. With the National Police Service, will provide the police security. We rolling out a program tomorrow, what we call the ESAP program, Election Security Arrangement Program, which is, we have developed a manual now to train police officers who will be involved in the elections. Remember, each polling station will have about 2 police officers. We are talking about 50,000 polling station plus. We therefore need to collaborate with the police who will assist in this. We also have collaboration with other agencies, the ODPP, EACC, and all the commissions which are directly involved, which have presence in the counties. So we are working closely, and I want to confirm that these collaborations are ongoing between ourselves and the other agencies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My session has like 5 minutes, so I'll do it very quickly. And I forgot to mention that Honorable Kajuju is also the president of the International Ombudsman Institute, Africa region. When Kenyan leaders hold international and regional positions, it's an honor for this country, and it's important that we recognize. Congratulations, Honorable Kajuju. Now, two final questions. One I'll ask, and thank you, Chair IEBC. If you remember, if you compare elections 2022 and elections 2017, by now, there were very serious litigation going on procurement. If you remember, of the election management system, there was litigation going on about the procurement of the ballot papers, and so it's good to hear that those processes have been resolved in good time, and I want to believe that it's a work that your team has done, and we can only pray that you continue to improve and to give Kenyans hope on the electoral process. Honorable Auditor General, I want to ask you a question now about your audit of these 16 independent offices and constitutional commissions. And I ask this to say, because the desire, the objective of the Constitution was that these institutions would be different. Sort of they would be the ones that start somewhere, and we can say this is how government should look like. How would you rate, generally, not specifically, in terms of content of the way that these institutions utilize public funding when compared with the rest of government? And that's not to say, we're not talking about misuse, but just in terms of proper management, proper accounting, proper recording. How would you rate them generally, and what would you say to them in case there are areas of improvement, so that they continue to be a beacon in Kenyans' faith in the public sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, the constitutional commissions and independent offices are under my purview. The only office that I do not audit is my office. That one, Parliament appoints an independent auditor, because constitutional commissions and independent offices are also required to be accountable, to be transparent. When the Constitution gives them their independence and says they're under no authority or person with regard to their operations, the same Constitution also says that they must operate in accordance with the Constitution and the law. That is the authority. And I must say that constitutional commissions and independent offices are leading by example in terms of the way they are accounting for the public resources that they are getting. But unfortunately, when it comes to the audit of their mandate, we can see clearly that they are struggling to meet their constitutional mandate because of lack of adequate funding. And therein, when it comes to performance audit or performance evaluation, then sometimes we have to indicate that they are not able to meet their work targets because of that part of independence.
Recording in progress.
And what I would like to say is that even my office, the Constitution spells out the independence under Chapter 15. Independence in operations, independence in getting your staff to do the work, independence in timelines. But we must say that that independence is eroded by those who hold the purse strings. That you can only work within the funds that you're allocated. And if you're not getting adequate funding, then it means the scope and quality of work that the independent offices and constitutional commissions can achieve is curtailed. That is the one area that we've been seeing issues. But with regard to accounting for the funds they receive, they have been leading by example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think they do deserve a clap. They say a good lawyer should never ask a question whose answer they don't know. But I was hoping that is the answer you'd give. And I'm very delighted to hear that. And I do hope that we retain that positive approach. Now, the battles with Parliament, you will have them. I used to, Dr. Muli will know, I used to chair the public finance side of the commission. And the first time we issued a statement against Parliament, and we went to Parliament, they promised us two things. They told us, one, they would not fund our budget. Number two, they would not extend our term. And so what we did is then we said, let us agree that you will not, in fact, we don't want our term to be extended. So that we put that aside from our conversations. And as for funding, it's up to you. You decide that you want, because our salaries are protected. So if you want to keep paying us for not carrying out our objective, that's a decision of Parliament. But those are sorts of challenges that inevitably, if you do your work well, that you'll find sometimes challenges. But I think there are ways to work around them, especially if you work together. Now, as I finish, Chair Otachi, I am going to use the prerogative of the chair to ask you a question, even as you, and it's a general question. Those of you who are old enough will remember a debate between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter. In their last debate, Ronald Reagan asked Jimmy Carter, are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? And Jimmy Carter said no, you know, and they were both competing. And he had been in the office for 4 years, and that was almost defined the end of his campaign, because Reagan then said even he admits that we are worse off than we were 4 years ago. I think the question I want to ask is Kenya better off than it was in 2010 because of the commissions and independent offices, looking at it broadly? And the second question is, as we look forward to the 10 years, what is it that these offices can do better to make sure that the achievements they have made, there have been many, that they continue to grow on them? And then I'll release the panel. A mic for Chair. Yes, you could actually. So that people, yeah, come up.
Yes. Choose. Okay. Yeah. Let me say this. I think let me talk standing.
That's all right.
Let me say this. I think we were told earlier in the day by Professor Mbote that it's important to remember. Now, let's start with a few very basic examples. Those of us who are old enough know that elections were supervised historically by an officer in the office of the Attorney General known as the Supervisor of Elections. And that officer, Supervisor of Elections, and I think for a long time, there was a Montgomery, and then later on, a gentleman from my neighborhood, Mr. Nyarango, I think. And that officer, if I recall well, was not even the rank or the equivalent of a Solicitor General or a DPP. He was just an officer in the office of the Attorney General. And the elections were conducted substantially. The people who conducted elections were the DCs, the district commissioners, who were administrators. Of course, we also, those of us who are old enough, also remember when we even got to the level of Mlolongo, of people queuing and so on and so forth, supervised by district commissioners. And if you meet some of these DCs and they explain to you what they did, I mean, it's really laughable. Why do I pick this example? Now we have, of course, we gradually had changes around the election bodies overseeing the elections. Until now, we got the IEBC anchored in the Constitution the way it is. Now, if you take that example, take another example that I also provide very often, because that, again, many Kenyans are familiar with. We used to get an announcement from VOK initially, later KBC, at 1 o'clock, that the president had a busy morning, and today he saw in a new Chief Justice. Justice Chunga is the new Chief Justice. So you get to learn, you know, that this happened. Or the first gentleman, Kamau was appointed a judge of the Court of Appeal this morning. Now, we have a very robust system now of, first of all, applications, interrogations. It gets very similar to when we are watching what happens in the US when a Supreme Court judge is being appointed. You watch through all those processes. Then the question you be asking yourself, would you rather be in that scenario as compared to now? I'm just giving those just as examples. Of course, in the land sector where where I am chair, we had a commission of lands, as we are told here in the morning, who would decide land is supposed to be given to so-and-so, so much land, and the president would just sign off. Why was the commission established? One of the reasons was that. Let us have some other independent body that makes a decision on this. And in that body, as chair, I will not just sign off. Wafula Jebukati wants an acre of land in Karen. He said, he comes and says, chair, Ebu sign he. I can't do that as chair, even because there is a commission and there's a process through which that commission sits and makes a decision. And the minutes can always be checked, and it will be clear how and when that decision was made. I've just picked on a few examples to demonstrate that Kenyans considered it fit to have certain checks and balances and the processes and certain levels of accountability and transparency. I think that was the spirit behind the creation of these commissions. And that's why I said in the morning, in my introductory speech, that as we reflect on these 10 years, as Kenyans, because we are told in Article 1 that the sovereignty belongs to the people of Kenya. As Kenyans, we should ask ourselves, this decision that we made, is it good or bad? As Kenyans, you should ask, should we retain these commissions, or should we disband them, or should we make them weaker? So I think in a way I've tried to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asante Chair. Thank you. And I think for me, the only thing I'd say, I think there's no question that we are definitely better off than we were 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. The opportunities that are there for the constitutional commissions and independent officers are enormous. I do think there's still a challenge in terms of public communication. I think there's a lot of work that's happening in the background and a lot of achievements, but I do think we need to look for more and more opportunities to communicate hope to a country that is generally very hopeless, to tell them that there is hope and there are institutions that are constitutionally given the responsibility to protect their sovereignty. But thank you very much, and Asante for listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very educative session. Let's give them 3 factorials. No, okay, let's start. Thank you very much. I will ask the distinguished panelists to continue sitting where they are because we have a plenary session now, and we have some questions also from our online participants. I will now invite the moderator for this session. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Muli. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya of over 26 years standing and a senior lecturer at University of Nairobi, Faculty of Law. Prior to joining the academia, Dr. Muli was a state counsel in the Office of the Attorney General, Treaties and Agreements Department, and she holds a PhD and a Master's of Science degree in law from Stanford Law School. She also holds a master's degree in law from University of Bristol in UK and a bachelor of degree from the University of Nairobi. She's also a Fulbright fellow. Let's give a hand of applause for Dr. Muli.
Good morning. Chair of chairs, my colleagues and distinguished guests. It's my pleasure this morning to moderate the plenary session. We have all listened to the deliberations that have occurred before now, the responses of the panelists, and I know they have provoked some questions or comments from yourself. Certainly for me they have. So I want to invite at this time any of you to who might have a question, please do raise your hand and a mic will be brought to you so that you can ask the panelists any question. When you do, please do state your name and then ask a question or two. We won't be able to take too much time on this session just because we are running behind time, but we do welcome now your engagements. Welcome. Anyone with a question or comment? Let me see a hand. Yes, I do see one there. Can we go around with a mic? Can a mic be given to the gentleman?
Good morning. Can I? My name is Obongo Sylvester. I work at the Public Service Commission. I'm not really directing this question to any specific panelist, but I think the Ombudsman would maybe more relevant to this. And I'm looking at the issue of the constitutions in their corporate responsibility. We know that national development hinges on an effective and efficient public service. And an efficient and effective public service should be meritocratically and competitively appointed. I've seen that in a number of occasions, what leads to maybe interference, what the chairman talked about, is issue of appointments. Is the process of coalition formation based on division of public positions really constitutional? I can see a lot of coalition agreements come and say, we shall divide 50% of the government, 20% to this. What are they based on? And is there a possibility of really at the point of depositing these coalition agreements to declare them really unconstitutional because they are based on a premise that is not allowed in the Constitution? I'm coming from the basis that the Chapter 15 constitutional organs are supposed to protect the interest of the citizens. At that juncture, who can protect the interest of the citizens?
Thank you so much for that question. Maybe we take a couple more so that the panelists can respond. Any other question from here? Oh, yes, madam.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caroline Kinyulusi, the Communications Manager for CRA, Commission on Revenue Allocation. My question is on the Chairs Forum, and it is, what is the vision of the Chairs Forum relating to public awareness on the CCIOs in the country? What is the vision of the Chairs Forum relating to public awareness on the CCIOs activities in the country? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that will go to the Vice Chair, or to the Chair. Chairman, I think you may need to come here and respond to that one. Our distinguished participants who are online, please feel free to post your questions. I'll post them. Allow me to ask them, and then I'll go around asking. We have a question to, I believe, Chairman Chebukati. Chairman, there's a question regarding the establishment of peace committees in every constituency during an election year. Has this been done? Also, a question on what is the effect of the Supreme Court declaration on the quorum of the IEBC on other independent offices who are either having a quorum set out in specific legislation, yet the court seems to have conflated the quorum and composition under Article 250 of the Constitution. Would setting the quorum be rendered superfluous by such an approach taken by the Apex Court? Allow me to perhaps direct this question, or there's one also to the CAJ. You did discuss a case, Madam Vice Chair, regarding the issue of land grabbing. So a question is whether after the impeachment of the governor, whether the land reverted back to the owner. What is the status with that? I will ask Chiangek perhaps to respond to the issue of, in the midst of several contempt of court orders by the executive, what is the role of independent offices in ensuring that court orders are followed now that really executive power has been devolved to you, as Professor Mbote had indicated. And then I have a question, I think for Madam Auditor General. Yes. How has IEBC sought to ensure that rogue public officers don't vie for elective positions? And how is it leading with EACC and maybe Auditor General's office on lifestyle audits? How have the commissions advanced the collaboration? No, I think lifestyle audits would be EACC, but I think Chair Chebukati, you can respond to that. Madam Auditor General, allow me to ask regarding the issue of performance of the CCIOs. You did discuss performance audits. There is a question of that was asked regarding whether, for example, if you have a coalition that says you must audit the use of public funds by certain state officers. I think that was a specific question, but I'd like you to respond generally to the question of when does the Auditor General come in to audit? Can you do it at your own instigation? Can you respond to complaints made or invitations made by anyone in the public? And also, to what extent can you guard against also the weaponization, for example, of your office or any other constitutional commission? Yeah, I think we can start there and then we take another round. I'll request Chiangek to start and then we go in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. That is the contempt of court, particularly court orders. And I can say for sure this is related to the 2/3 gender principle scenario. What do we do when there is a court order and it is not complied with? And when it is not complied with, the first thing we do, we are very good. We'll go to the person
and just remind them. Trying alternative dispute resolution. Trying to be good to the person who is supposed to comply. I think this one doesn't have enough.
Do you want to stand here? So, because our virtual participants are unable to hear clearly.
Thank you very much. Now, when people do not comply, and particularly when it is individuals, we try other methods. But when it is corporate, and allow me to give you the example of our own parliament, they have not enacted the legislation for us to realize the 2/3 gender principle, despite the fact that court orders have been issued again and again. So what happened? Start from the lower court and move on. And as I talk to you, we are at the Supreme Court. Remember the Maraga case. NGEC is enjoined in that. So what is going to happen? Because when they could not comply, we said then Parliament should be dissolved because it is unconstitutional, and that is for a fact. They were not dissolved, but I think soon they will go back to the people. Have we talked to the people about the 2/3? Yes. What has happened? Political Parties Act. Look at it keenly. The political party lists. Now, you will have to comply. I'm not saying we are using a backdoor. IEBC, my brother here keeps on telling them, if you don't comply with the 2/3, I will also not take your lists. So as Anne Deritu is dealing with the registration matters, then IEBC at the other end is dealing with that. So what does this mean? When we hit some big rock that we have not been able to move, we will use international treaties and conventions. And since we are supposed to comment on all the policies and legislation and the regulations, even in the very parliament, we make sure we introduce others. Right now, I must say there is some legislation, a bill, that is supposed to action Article 100 on representation of various special interest groups. This has not been concluded. We are still following to see whether it will be concluded. Of course, I must say, other than Senate, the National Assembly, what we used to call the Ndwale Bill, has died. But rest assured, I want to tell you, the Kenyans know what is supposed to be there. And when they don't comply, and they know there is money to be given when you involve the SIGs, they know in their political parties. So when we met with them, particularly the political parties, they are now saying, for them, they will comply. But has Parliament done its part? No. But we can still rely on that same article and sub-article 6, where we can use other administrative measures to realize the 2/3. It's not only the 2/3, there is also the issue of PWDs, where we are not getting up to 5%. But since I'm saying this one, since there is no contempt of court, we shall see what happens when they review the PWD Act of 2003. Because we have been following those old acts just to make sure that they are in tandem with the Kenya Constitution 2010. Thank you very much, and continue praying for us so that the 2/3 legislation comes to bear in the next parliament. I think it will be the 13th parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman?
Thank you very much. If I recall the question, it was to do with the engagement of the CCIOs with the public. But let me just give a bit of background about how we are structured. Unlike the Council of Governors, which actually has a formal structure, it has a CEO, it has staff, and I think that's because governors are executives, they're heads of governments. Unlike that organization, ours is really a lean organization in terms of that structure. We just have a chair and a vice chair. That's myself. At this point in time, it's myself and Florence Kajuju, my vice chair, and that's it. Now, the secretariat is the secretariat of the chair. So my secretariat, my office, is my secretariat. So given that, of course, you can imagine the challenges with the logistical aspect of having to keep on making arrangements for this and the other. So we are not that structured to be able to have robust, continuous engagements as CCIOs, as a body, with the public. Now, the inaugural chairs, in their wisdom, and of course, they must be commended for having started that early. And the very first meeting, set of meetings in Mombasa, had all these chairs and independent officers. The Chief Justice, first Chief Justice was there. You had the AG and the DPP, and and all the chairs. And what they came up with was an interaction amongst the chairs to be checking on how we are doing and how we are moving together. And that we continue with in a very robust way. We meet very regularly, physically and virtually. Now, in terms of engagement with the public, again, they came up with a decision that every year there shall be a conference, and that will go around, appreciating the evolution. They would go around the counties. And that is what they did over time. I think for those of you who are here, you saw, and those online, there was a slide that was shown earlier on, and that was focusing on the last search function in Kericho, where you could see how the chairs were engaging with the public. So it was an annual engagement by way of a conference, and they went round. They started in Nairobi, they went to Nakuru at some point. I think when they were in Meru, there was a president who presided. When they were in Kericho, it was a vice president who presided. So they went round many counties. And that is the engagement that they had in mind, and that's engagement with the public. As I pointed out again, in the last 2 years, unfortunately, we tried our best to do that. It was impossible because of COVID. It was not possible to do that kind of engagement. But then, that is the engagement with all the chairs and control commissions as a caucus. But there are continuous engagements. At any given time, there are engagements where you have 4 or 5 independent officers and chairs engaged simultaneously in doing something. But we are all roped in and we know what's happening. Chair Jebukatia will tell you just, I think 2 days ago, they were in an engagement at Kenya School of Government with the Chief Justice, with the DPP, with NCIC, on matters relating to elections. You were given an example by Joyce, Dr. Mutinda, about an engagement in Kisii, some time back, involving all these various chairs or various commissions. We do have those engagements where we are engaging as chairs, but also involve the public as well. In December last year, when we had a breakfast to welcome on board the chair's caucus, the chair of Judicial Service Commission, who happens as Chief Justice, as well as the chair to Teacher Service Commission, who had just come into office in the course of the year. We had a breakfast at Serena, and we had, we called media, and that was also aired, and there was a discussion around CCIOs. We have all sorts of engagements. Just the other day, as chair of NLC, we had an engagement with NCIC in Mombasa with engaging with the leaders of Lamu on issues of when there were these attacks and there were all sorts of issues around dynamics in Lamu. We had an engagement with the leaders in Lamu in perspective of the dynamics heading to elections and revolving around matters of land. So these are continuous. Late last year, again, we had an engagement with, this again, the grassroots engagements. We were launching an AJS, alternative justice system, pilot in Kajiado, a people-based engagement in terms of matters of justice. And in that, we as NLC were together, and we've been partnering with the judiciary. That's the Judicial Service Commission. We're there with the CJ. Just the other day, again, 3 months ago, about a month ago, we were launching together with the Chief Justice was launching a court users committee for ELC court, Environment and Land Court. And as NLC, we are part and parcel of that. I'm just giving examples of where you find 2, 3, 4 commissions or independent offices working together. So that happens continuously, but I appreciate that we may need more visibility. Of course, as I said, we actually have a lean secretariat. The secretariat is my secretariat, but we are looking at ways of engaging more and more with the public. And now that we are getting a lot more used to virtual engagements, what I look forward to is more engagements centered around institutions like this, where every now and then we're able to gather and have an engagement like this. So we are looking at how we can be more and more engaging. But what I want everyone to understand is that as the caucus, we interact very, very robustly, much as we also have checks on each other. The Auditor General will audit us. ESCC would follow up on issues of integrity and so on and so forth. My vice chair, the ombudsman, she writes to me and wants to know what action you have taken on certain issues. So we check on each other within our mandates. Yet we have that very, very robust engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That was very encouraging. Chair Bukati, please. And another question has come while we were waiting, so maybe you can respond to it. Yeah, just on the issue of how IEBC has sought to ensure rogue public officers don't vie for elective office. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Molly. I have the most questions, I think, 4 of them. Yeah, the first one is on establishment of peace committees. This then, I would want to marry it with the program we are rolling out tomorrow, the election security arrangement program. We gazetted the election date on the 20th of January this year, meaning the Election Offences Act kicked in. Now, as you all remember, the Election Offences Act initially used to be enforced by the Election Commission then, but with the 2010 Constitution and subsequent legislation, these powers were given to the DPP in the last amendments of the Election Offences Act. And so the DPP then has the full responsibility of ensuring that election offenses are prosecuted. But alongside that, the IEBC also has legal provisions that mandate it to deal with pre-election disputes. And until a few days ago, we were fully in charge of the Code of Conduct Committee. The High Court gave a judgment the other day that the Code of Conduct Committee is unconstitutional and nullified it. But we have another High Court judgment which affirms that the Code of Conduct Committee is constitutional. So our lawyers will advise us on how to deal with 2 High Court decisions which are conflicting. But alongside that, we are rolling out an election security arrangement program which then spells out all these issues as relates to dispute resolution pre-election. And in this rollout, we have the peace committees, which have already been set up in the 47 counties, which will involve the other stakeholders in the counties, including the administration and generally the other stakeholders we work with. So peace committees will be in place to monitor and manage the election, and especially during campaign period. We have, of course, as a commission, we also have a monitoring tool, which monitors possibility of violence in certain areas, and we share this information with the National Police Service so that they can then prevent this from happening. So yes, peace committees are there, and there will be trainings will follow for those who will be involved, in those peace committees. The other question is on quorum, the Supreme Court judgment that dealt with the issue of quorum. I just want to mention here that contrary to what some people think, elections don't just happen every 5 years. We have what we call an electoral cycle. The electoral cycle never stops. From the 2017 election, immediately we finished the general elections, then we had a post-election evaluation. This is a period of audit and evaluation of what happened. We look at observer reports, we look at reports from other institutions, and even self-evaluate. And we came up with a post-election evaluation report. This was done when commission, we were 3 in office when this report was rolled out. We produce annual reports, which are a mandatory requirement as per the Constitution, which are shared with Parliament and the Presidency. We came up with a strategic plan and election operation plan, which I mentioned earlier. And we commenced procurement of strategic, non-strategic materials way back since last year. And also, all these stakeholder engagements have been throughout this period. So why this judgment of the Supreme Court is important on quorum is that had the Supreme Court ruled otherwise, then all these activities, a Kenyan, I'm sure, would have gone to court and say that these activities are, what do you call, null and void? Yes, something like that. So the judgment of the Supreme Court is critical, and remember the law that provides for quorum the commission was struck out by the High Court, and is yet to be amended. Parliament is yet to enact a law to replace that bit on the issue of quorum. So the guidance of the Supreme Court is critical in the management of the commission when it comes to matters of quorum. I would like now to move to the next question on Chapter 6. The agencies involved in Chapter 6, especially the EACC and others, we all recognize the fact that we have a very weak legal framework, and the Constitution itself provides on matters of qualifications and disqualifications for office, and says unless you have been convicted of an offense for a period of 6 months and above, you are eligible to stand for elections. This is very, very scanty. There's the legal framework, the law we have, leadership integrity is very, very scanty on elections, those who qualify for elections or who should not stand. It only says fill the form and submit to IEBC. That's all it says. It doesn't say anything else. Perhaps there would have been need for legislation around this area so that parameters are given as to who should not qualify to participate in the elections. But then the Constitution goes ahead to say, if you have filed an appeal, then you should, until your appeal is heard and determined, you can qualify to stand for elections. So then there's a real weakness around the legislation governing Chapter 6. Chair, I think I've cleared the question. Thank you.
After you finish your term, you have a possible career in academia. Now I will invite the Vice Chair, Chair CAJ, and as you come, I will add a couple more questions. She was also my classmate, so she'll give me some room. It's to confirm specifically whether your office has begun the process of clearing those who want to stand for elective office. There was also a question regarding whether your view on whether it's possible for people who have served 2 terms as governors and now want to sit in Senate, whether they'll be able to oversight effectively or whether there'll be a conflict of interest, seeing as some of the matters that may come are what they were up to, which were raised in queries by Madam Auditor General. So I'll just add those 2 for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liz, and it's good that you've disclosed we were classmates.
So you can punish me as much as you want, because now you can be my teacher, because you've really advanced, and congratulations. The first gentleman forgot to say that when I was in Parliament and serving in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, I used to make sure that when he appeared before our committee, we would give him a lot of money for the commission that he used to sit. So that now, as a first gentleman, we can enjoy also the powers and privileges that you enjoy. But be that as it may, on the issues that have been addressed to me, the first question came from Sylvester, or from Public Service Commission, if I got it right. And I'm happy that you're asking from the Public Service Commission, because the Public Service Commission and the Ombudsman share quite a number of important mandates in as far as public service delivery is concerned. And there before we've had opportunity of working together in ensuring that there is efficient and effective delivery of public service. But in as far as this question is concerned, I was trying to throw it to my colleague chair, Mr. Chebukati, and he actually told me, yes, that's my question, but I wouldn't answer, because it has not been asked to him. But he gave me a word that I should give you. He told me that when it comes to this being the political season, there is the issue of the promissory note. He told me to come and tell you, Sylvester, that what we are seeing now are promissory notes that are being passed left, right, and center. And we've seen a lot of proposals on coalitions. As early as today, I saw one of the presidential aspirants complaining that he deserves more than he got in the arrangement that he entered into. So most of these things that are happening will continue to happen for as long as it's going to be the political season. But what I can assure you, and I think maybe the registrar of political parties would have been here to also support this, if the registrar of political parties then moves to appreciate or to admit or to accept any agreement from the coalition agreements that are being undertaken, then that is illegal. Sharing possessions that do not exist, making promises that are not actualized or that are not provided for in the Constitution, then we as the Office of the Ombudsman will go after the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, because then it is the duty of the Registrar of Political Parties to ensure that any acceptance or admission of an agreement or an arrangement that is taken before her then is legally provided for. If it is not, then the issue of abuse of office arises. I attended a program of Esami where I was being told that when it came to the issue of, especially in marriage, there is the shopping list. When for us ladies, when a man is talking to you, he will ask you for a shopping list, which can include every item under the sun, including the sun itself. But when you agree and get married, then you get to the real list. So there is the shopping list, and what I can see now happening in the society is the shopping list, promissory notes, many things are happening. But I believe a time will come when the real list, and that is when the commissions come in. What is it that is in the Constitution? And that is how we are going to protect the Constitution in as far as that is concerned. Remembering that the Ombudsman is the citizen advocate. The Ombudsman is supposed to be the watchman who protects the citizen. And this is the time for us to ensure that the politics around the Constitution then do not affect what is provided for in the Constitution. The other issue is on the case that I cited, where we were able to get land, 2 portions of land in a very prime area that had been grabbed or taken away by a senior official in the county government. And we were able to get the registrar of Kiambu County to have the titles that were issued cancelled, and other titles were issued to the person who was then properly entitled. So that happened, and I can assure you we are watching out on any other issue of that nature. We work with the National Lands Commission to ensure that we protect
persons who hold titles. The other issue is about clearance of aspirants. That is something that it's ongoing in the Office of the Ombudsman. As we speak now, we have a number of applications that have come to the office seeking for clearance for them to go now to my brother, Mr. Chebukati, for purposes of getting the further clearances. So that is happening, and we have already uploaded a form that is in our website, so that any person who then is aspiring to an elective position can have it downloaded and brought to the office for purposes of confirming they are not in the citation register, and they can proceed to vie. The other issue that I've been asked is on, what was the last question? Okay, that the Constitution provides for 2 terms if you are lucky to be elected, but the Constitution, and my teacher, Mr. Kamau Waiganjo, maybe would advise, I don't think there is anywhere in the Constitution that stops someone who has been a governor from running for the office of the Senate. So that is what then would call lacunae, a legal gap, so that now if the citizens of that county decide to elect someone who has served them as a governor for 2 terms, I don't think there is anything in the Constitution, to the best of my knowledge, that would stop that elective process from happening. So unless then a governor who has served for 2 terms has questions or has issues that are before the office of the Ombudsman, or that would lead him to be declared unfit to further hold a public office, then I don't think the office of the Ombudsman would be in a position to stop that person from vying for that position of the Senate or any other, especially where the oversight role is concerned. But maybe that is why some of those who have served for 2 terms are running to Senate. I don't know. The citizens are the ones to answer that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I'll now invite Madam Auditor General, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elizabeth Muli. I would want to start by saying that auditors, and I've been one throughout my career, are not always liked. It is not easy for anyone to invite an auditor to come and audit them. And I was just discussing earlier, before we started this webinar, with Florence, that every day I'm receiving at least 4, 5, 6 requests for audit, requests for information. And when I analyze, I can clearly see it has to do with Wafula Chebukati's job. We have people who are looking for all manner of ways to get some advantage when they are competing with their opponents. And more so at the MCA, at the MP, and at the Senate level, where funds are normally oversighted. I want to quote the Constitution and the law, because constitution commissions and independent offices are subject to the Constitution and the law and are not under the control of any person or authority. Article 229 of the Constitution mandates the Auditor General to audit and report on the accounts of any entity funded from public funds. And Article 2296 requires the Auditor General to confirm whether public money has been applied lawfully and in an effective way. Article 252 mandates the Auditor General, and this is the same with some of the constitutional commissions and independent offices, to conduct investigations on own initiative or on a complaint made by a member of the public. And it goes further to say any person who makes a complaint is a person who is entitled to institute court proceedings under Article 221 and 2. So I'm also giving you some homework. Again, Article 254 says that at any time, the President, the National Assembly, or the Senate may require the Auditor General to submit a report on a particular issue. Now, these articles have also been operationalized by the Public Audit Act 2015, where Section 37 allows the Auditor General to conduct forensic audits upon request by Parliament. The most important thing is for the Auditor General to do the work in a professional manner within the Constitution, within the law, to evaluate and determine, is this a genuine audit? Is this an audit that speaks to corruption, in which case I may want to pass it on to the EACC? Or is it an audit that may clog up the resources of the Office of the Auditor General because of some interests? The requests are numerous. We have been evaluating them in the office. Some we are handling under the normal course of audit because we have the audit calendar. We are now finalizing the 2020-2021 financial audits. Others, depending on availability of resources and time between now and the close of the financial year, may have to be deferred to 2021-2022 audit cycle that will be handled from July 2022. So the Constitution and the law mandates the Auditor General to audit all public funds. I thank you.
Thank you so much for that clarity on the law. I will just ask 3 questions that have come in before we end this particular session. Chair Chebukati, please don't tire to respond. It's one question, actually. This is with regard to campaign financing, whether the law is in place, whether there is a process of monitoring the campaign financing, and secondly, also, when the campaign period ends, what measures will be there to ensure campaigns don't continue through social media? Kenyans don't receive text messages through Safaricom still campaigning. So that is for you. Chair Gek, a question for you is with regard to the enforcement of the recommendations of Article 59 commissions. The decision of the Supreme Court was that the commissions give recommendations that are not binding. Do you view this as a gap in the law, a lacuna that needs to be cured to strengthen the oversight by these commissions? Lastly, the chair will end for us, Chairman. The question for you is with regard to what steps can be taken or intervention can be taken with regard to ensuring CCIOs are fully constituted. There are some that don't have the requisite membership. So what measures as a forum are you able to use to try and encourage that the appointments that should be made are made and are made in time? And one just from me is with regard to when we can expect a national land policy, which under your mandate you're supposed to recommend. I think we are still using the one of 2009. So the first NLC didn't make it to deliver on that. It would be good to hear if this current NLC will deliver on that mandate. Thank you. So, yes, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. The question on campaign financing, yes, the law is there. The law which
talks about campaign financing. First, the Constitution Article 88(4) provides that the IEBC shall set the framework of campaign financing. And then there's a substantive law, which is there. However, in 2016, we had proposed regulations which were then to guide the campaign financing. Those regulations were, and the law was then postponed to 2022 by Parliament. At the moment, of course, sometimes last year, or even before last year, we, as a commission, we saw that then the law was not operational in 2017, and we took the initiative to engage Parliament. That's the Justice Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. And we then looked at the campaign financing law and areas which we thought should be amended. We had several meetings and came up with a draft amendment of the substantive law, which we then submitted to the National Assembly as a draft. Of course, that law has not been reached the floor of the House, the amendments to that law. Realizing that, then we came up with guidelines on how to operationalize the campaign financing. This as related to funding for the 6 elective positions. And these guidelines were then structured in a way, we worked together with the Commission on Revenue Allocation to give us the structures and as to how we could develop these guidelines. Remember, not all counties are the same. Some have more purchasing power than others. And so we came up with these guidelines, which we gazetted, but we all know what happened. The committee in Parliament that's charged with delegated legislation made a report that struck out these guidelines. So we don't have regulations, we don't have guidelines, so we cannot operationalize campaign financing for purpose of the 2022 general elections. Perhaps I would like to say that there are matters in court. There are 2 matters in the High Court as we speak, where the issues have been challenged. First, I think the issues around striking out the campaign financing regulations and guidelines by Parliament and other areas around this law. So we could perhaps wait for the judgments from the High Court, which may give us guidance on the way forward. So that's as far as campaign financing is concerned. As we speak now, the Commission is not doing anything about it because we don't have regulations and we don't have the guidelines. Social media campaigns after election, after campaign period, the law says 48 hours to election, no campaigns. That's what the law says, and that's what we have gazetted in terms of the election date gazette notice. So if any candidate will be involved in campaigns, the Commission, of course, will take appropriate action. As I mentioned earlier, we had the Code of Conduct Committee, which again is in jeopardy, so we may have to report to the DPP to take action if the Code of Conduct Committee will not be there. But the law is there. If the candidate takes the risk of campaigning, of course, the risk being sued in an election petition is a matter that can be picked up in an election petition. Is a matter then citizens can still prosecute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that question, moderator. Now, it's very interesting. I remember at one point I said we have challenges. And one of those challenges is lack of enforcement powers. Lack of enforcement powers by quite a number of the CCIOs. And the matter that was cited by whoever asked the question, it was the advisory that was given to CAJ. And that is, this case was, I'd recorded it down. It was in the matter of Kenya Vision 2030 Delivery Board versus Commission on Administrative Justice and two others. This was petition number 42 of 2019 of the Supreme Court. The court declared that whereas CAJ has a requisite mandate to make recommendations to a public officer or a public body, the same is not binding. A recommendation can only be binding when the same is specifically provided for in the Constitution or in law. Now, neither the Constitution nor CAJ Act states that CAJ's recommendations are binding. And I can lift this and also put it in NGEC Act. It can fit also in the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and so forth and so on. The question was, is this a lacuna in law? I would say that is a lacuna in law. It needs to be addressed. Just the way we say somebody should serve for 2 terms, and they serve for 2 terms, and they go for the next position, and we don't know how to tell them not to go. Just think of the deputy governors. They have been deputies, they have served for 2 terms, and they want to be governor. But you can't stop them because there is that lacuna in law. So if the constitutional brains that we have in the House can take up this matter, it will be very useful. But remember, earlier on, I had said that we use alternative dispute resolution as much as possible. And again, we also call upon international instruments. So when it is not in CAJ Act or NGEC Act, and we find it in a convention or a treaty that Kenya has ratified. Remember, it has been domesticated under Article 2, Sub-Article 6 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So we are able to use that. So at times, when I come across that, let me give you the easier one. When the pandemic struck, there was our good Waziri was giving updates, and these updates were verbal. And they forgot that there are people who do not have the luxury of hearing. And therefore, they were just seeing the minister, the cabinet secretary, opening and closing his mouth. And this is a matter of life and death. So we did an advisory and told Mutahi Kagwe, you need an interpreter, sign language interpreter, to be with you at all times when you give those briefs, so that we save our people. Now, I'm glad he took it up within 2 hours, and that was used. But we realized we did not have the law to hold him responsible. So what did we do? Behind, we went and engineered what is called the Sign Language Bill. It is in Parliament, Sign Language Bill 2021, just about to be concluded. So we did not just sit back. So we can go and initiate that, even when there is lacuna. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now to end our session, I'll invite the chairman, the chair of chairs, to come and respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let me start with a question, Elizabeth, that you asked me about the national land policy. Now, the last national land policy we had was that one of 2009, and that was to be in place for 10 years. Now, maybe as a background, that national policy actually is what recommended the creation of the National Land Commission. And it also recommended, among others, the establishment of a tribunal specialized in court matters. And what actually the Constitution came up with was a specialized court, the Environment and Land Court. So that was born out of that, the recommendations from that policy. Now, what the law provides, the Constitution provides, is that the National Land Commission shall recommend a national land policy to national government. And that, I can report, has been done. What happened was that when at the end of the 10 years, unfortunately, it was at the cycle when the commissioner's term was coming to an end. They had drafted a land policy. So by the time we came into office, we fine-tuned it and forwarded that to the ministry. So we are waiting for further action. But in my interaction with the CS lands recently, it was agreed that there's need to subject that to stakeholder engagement, because a draft that was done way back in 2019, it has not been actualized yet. The thinking was that even in this interim period, from 2019 up to now, there may be so much more to discuss. So the CS lands, in our discussion, would subject it to public participation in the near future. Then we move forward. So NLC has done its part in recommending, but there's need to maybe to look at whatever was recommended that has not been implemented, whether it needs to be panel beaten a bit, and of course subjected to discussion by the people of Kenya, in whom the sovereignty resides, as we've been discussing. Now, the other question about appointment of commissioners, of course, the immediate answer as to what the caucus does or would do in terms of ensuring timely appointment, we obviously do not have, we are an informal caucus, so we don't have any real legitimacy in law in saying this is what should be done by this time. What we do, of course, we do lobby, we pass on the messages to those who are involved, the executive, the legislature, and I think the engagement we've had in the recent past has borne fruit. If I take my own commission, for instance, there were no commissioners for a period of close to a year, and that seriously affected some operations. There are commissions that did not have commissioners for some time, particularly the Kenya National Human Rights Commission also. But in the recent past, that has been remedied, and we now do have a chair and commissioners at Kenya Human Rights Commission. And I don't think right now we have a challenge in terms of vacuum. I do know that we had a vacuum in the office of the Auditor General for a while. I don't know whether she has done an audit on that matter, but she told us she does not audit herself. But I think there's the appreciation that once certain officers are vacant for some time, it has a certain effect. Now, one of the matters that we need to look at as Kenyans in reviewing the Constitution. Now, probably I'll get a little political here. We've been discussing BBI. It's taken, it is a direction back and forth up to the Supreme Court. But I think what the Supreme Court has eventually decided is that, that basic structure issue does not apply. So basically, it's like we can actually amend the Constitution. It was just about how it was kick-started. So for that reason, maybe as Kenyans, when we are, and Professor Sianya at some point will guide us, whether today or sometime in the future, to get in a forum like this to understand that Supreme Court decision, so that then now we know if we want to start amending the Constitution as Wanjiku or whoever, how do we do it in such a way that, again, we are not taken through that cycle of the Supreme Court, but we actually succeed in amending it. Now, some of the amendments that maybe we may want to look at, the constitutional commissions, the way it is structured is such that you have an appointment for 6 years. It's a one 6-year term. Once that's done, you leave, and then there's a fresh, Now, the critique that has been done around that is that a lot of, and when you look at the process of appointment of chairs and commissioners, well, let us first of all appreciate that it is so detailed, so robust. It involves so many circles, so that it's not a question of somebody waking up one day and saying, so-and-so is a commissioner. So there are processes, statutory and otherwise, that eventually end up in Parliament. Now, that cycle, a lot of times, takes quite a while. It appears that the minimum it will take, even when really pushed, will be something like 2 months. Now, what happens is, once the cycle of commissioners has come to an end, there's a vacuum for some period. Now, that's a vacuum that is by the very nature of the Constitution. So that some of the discussion we've been having in our forum is, should the law be have 3 commissioners appointed at this time? The way they do the elections, is it in Senate or governorship in the US, where you have cycles, so that you don't have a period where you totally have no commissioner sitting. Maybe that's something to think around as we think around amending the Constitution, as we think around the new BBI, if you like. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to express our deep appreciation to our panelists for their patience in receiving questions. There are still more coming on our virtual platform. I want to really appreciate our participants on the virtual platform and also those who are here, but to say that because of time, we cannot really take all the questions now. So I'll hand over so that we go back to the next session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elizabeth Muli, for handling that session so well. Let's give a hand of applause to our thank you, to our panelists who've done a great job. We have 4 pillars, so we give 4 factorials. Let's start. Thank you very much. We will ask them to bear with us as we wrap up this session. Allow me to invite Professor Ben Sihanya of the University of Nairobi to come and give a brief wrap-up on promoting effectiveness of the CCIOs going into the future. Professor Ben Sihanya holds a PhD from Stanford Law School. He is also an intellectual property and constitutional professor, advocate and mentor at the University of Nairobi Law School, and is the founder, CEO of Professor Ben Sihanya Advocates and Sihanya Mentoring. Professor Sihanya has practiced as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya for at least 27 years. Professor Sihanya possesses knowledge, experience, and interest in constitutional democracy, electoral justice, and political law spanning at least 33 years. In addition to researching in these fields, Professor Sihanya has litigated and advised on numerous constitutional and electoral cases in Kenya and elsewhere. He has extensively published several books, which include in the areas of intellectual property, constitutional democracy, and innovation. Sihanya is an active practitioner and has argued, co-argued, and co-prepared numerous substantive cases before the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, High Court, Magistrates Court, tribunals as lead counsel and co-counsel. He has helped develop electoral justice, constitutional democracy, and the rule of law through numerous roles in litigation and public interest lawyering. Let us give him a hand of applause. Thank you and welcome, Professor Ben Sihanya.
Good afternoon. Is it afternoon already? Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, both here and in the digital environment. So, thank you for that introduction. The Vice Chancellor represented, the chair of this forum, who is the chair of chairs of the commissions and of the CCIOs, the university staff throughout the country, of course, and students, the officials from various governments, agencies, CSOs, as well as the private sector, all participants, some who are online and some who are physically here. I'm delighted to be here to address an issue that is very important called how do we entrench and how we can, what is the role, the future role of, secure the future role of CCIOs in Kenya into the future. And that this is an issue that has been close to my heart for as long as I've been a law student or a lawyer, going back to the 1980s. So my presentation is three-pronged. Number one is, what are the objectives, powers, and functions of CCIOs in the Constitution, in the law, in policy? Number two, the second prong is that how have they performed and what are the challenges and the quest for reform? And the third prong is then what are some of the proposed and what are some of the necessary reforms? So I know there won't be much time to debate this, so how I wish the presentation had come earlier so that you engage some of the questions that I'm going to raise. And some of these are as follows. Let's take the first question, really, about the issues of objectives. The Constitution is clear and reflected the wishes of the people of Kenya at the time and still now, that the main objective and therefore the powers and functions ought to flow from a three-pronged approach. I many times work with a three-pronged approach inspired by the Holy Trinity and inspired by my own triple heritage. As a village lawyer, a lawyer from the village who is working on a pan-Kenyan, pan-African constitutional democracy issues, and influenced also quite a lot by Western education and by Christianity. So three are magical for me. So the three-pronged approach that the Constitution uses is to say that CCIOs are to protect the sovereignty of the people, to promote democratic values, and you see that they're largely generic, and of course, to protect constitutionalism, which of course many progressive scholars call much more dynamically constitutional democracy. And then the question then is, how have the statutes, how have the regulations and policy, and I'll be mentioning policy quite a bit because the missing link in a lot of our discussions in this country has been the Constitution and policy. Policy as a guide on everything that we do, and policy as a predecessor to the legislative process. But in many situations, even on issues affecting CCIOs, we rush to legislation before agreeing, having a policy consensus. And are we surprised that there's always a problem with implementation? Oh, I'm not surprised. Full disclosure, I'm the chair of the Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research and Analysis, which has inspired by me much more to deal with policy, but I started this work on policy issues under Professor Kazase Juma at ACS in the 80s, at the significance of policy. So there's quite a lot of debate here on whether the statutes, the regulations, the policies have really internalized the role of the various CCIOs. And we know that there was a lot of promise. There was a lot of promise about CCIOs. I think that let me just transition to the second question because I'll focus a little more on second and third questions. There was a lot of promise. And I remember in the late 80s and early 90s, some of the debates that we used to have, and of course I was just, not just, I mean, we respect that. I was a graduate of first year law school and was an intern at ACS. And some of the debates that we were having at the time were that, and in Public Law Institute under Dr. Mbaka, were that given that it was very difficult to get, for example, broadcasting, the debate was mainly about broadcasting and media. The media was constrained. It was not liberalized. We had our only VOK, later KBC, and there was a lot of debate on how we can liberalize that. But when then we realized as we debated that there was a Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which was both a service ministry and also a regulatory ministry. And that was always very difficult. And people like Mr. S.K. Macharia would tell you they had a lot of challenges in getting broadcasting licenses. And we started saying that, what if we had a commission as a regulatory agency rather than a ministry? Wouldn't it be good? And that's how we started internalizing the need for CCIOs. And much later, of course, we had the CKRC, and the idea of commission was coming in. And let me just fast track to the current framework on CCIOs under Chapter 15. Then we had our CCIOs, and we celebrated. I remember in the early days, CIC, we celebrated intellectually, physically, and everywhere. When they started holding the government to account through various means, litigation, which was a last resort, there were issues of really addressing the people, and there were so many good things that happened in the early days. We remember by 2010, IEBC, JSC, the judiciary, were being voted as having the greatest confidence of the people of this country. And then what happened? Because everybody knows that things are not right in CCIOs. And I want to confirm that some good things have happened. And also the idea of a culture of having independent agencies, agencies that are independent from the daily bureaucracy, routine bureaucracy, was a good concept, was a good idea. Textually in the Constitution, but also in terms of our political economy and our day-to-day politics. However, what happened? There are theories which have been developed, and we have been working with theories. Were the commission CCIOs very independent, especially in the Grand Coalition regime, because of the checkmating within the Grand Coalition and the greater inclusivity of that government? Yes, that's a very powerful theory. That's a major explanation. Because immediately from about 2010, if you study these commissions, CCIOs, you'll see that they started moving in a certain direction of not really implementing their core mandates. Can I give you examples, some of which were even ridiculous? There's a time we had a debate in a private university in this country with a member, a commission at CIC. And the debate was about security laws of 2014, the infamous security laws of 2014. And I presented that these are unconstitutional. The matter was, I think, before Justice Odunga. And I said, these are unconstitutional. And then the commissioner told me two things. You know what? One, we know we are not in government, and we don't know sometimes what they do. And I said, you are a commission. You are in CIC, and you are telling us you are not in government. What are you? Private sector? NGO? What? Everybody knows CIOs are government, much as they are intended to be independent. Then the other issue that they told, the person said that, oh, those laws are generally okay, and I think there were some presentations at that time by so many members of the CIC and institutionally that gave the impression that those laws were okay. I'm glad with the benefit of history, we know better, because Justice Odunga struck out most of those provisions, and then the Court of Appeal upheld it. So the point is that there is a way in which our CCIOs went a certain direction. Then there was also, of course, everybody knows about IEBC and what has been said about it, about whether it was about qualifications to run in 2013, the conduct of elections in 2017, server issues, which was asleep in France, etc., etc. You are aware of those things. And this is some of the ridiculous things that institutions which have been given power by the people and the Constitution, and the institutions which are, at least if they are not generally funded for their general operations, there is certainty that there is funding for the relevant officers. generally, at as a super scale, if you like. So the question is that in some cases, independence has been a situation of really, yeah, I'm looking at the whole time, and I'm within the timeline. Thanks. I'm very cautious. I've submitted in the Supreme Court for 5 minutes, and we won the case in Maina Kiai, and I'm still within the timeline. I'm within the timeline. Thank you. Yeah. So, I think that is the context in which some people used to say, including I, in a scholarly faction, used to say that were the CCIOs intended to be the fourth arm of government? It's sometimes a rhetorical question, because the answer is yes and no. And I've done that in a chapter in my book called RALCA, Constitutional Democracy and Administrative and Regulatory Law in Kenya and Africa, or Regulatory and Administrative Law in Kenya, which is available in the web, chapter 20. And I've done yes and no, and generally the idea was that they were expected to enjoy, to have reasonable independence and in order to deliver, but independent accountability. Also accountable to the people in their fairness. So many of the commissions give you outcome either very late, which you can't use, or they don't respond at all. And these are some of the issues that have been out there, and they are documented. So the third last question is that as we talk about these reforms, and sometimes it's delivered it. The CCIO, some of them deliberately don't deliver. And they have not necessarily captured, okay, some cases are direct capture, sometimes by the executive, sometimes by parliament, but sometimes it's a situation of self-inflicted lack of independence, etc., for various reasons. Then the last issue here is about some, like if you look at, as an illustration, if you look at some of the key challenges that Kenya is facing now of a governance nature, but we don't know what Kenya will face in future in terms of governance. But the three that Kenya is facing at the present, which inform the BBI discourse, and I'm glad that the chair of chairs has been speaking about this, because the issues that were in BBI are still very relevant. They're relevant now, they're relevant into the future. Like the question of tribalism and exclusion. The question of elections, national, at the county level, in our institutions, including public universities. The question of appointments and tenders and related corruption. A lot of these issues, some commissions have written reports, but one day, what is the action? Let me give you an example. Tribal inclusion in public service. I think Public Service Commission has given us some data. The National Cohesion and Integration, which is not really typically CCIO, but it's relevant, has given us some data, including sometimes that you have 80% so-and-so CEOs coming from 1.5 community or a quarter communities. The question is, what has been done about it? What has been done? Is it just good enough to give us some of this data? And what are the consequences in the governance of our institutions, including public universities? These issues will animate debate into the future, and Kenyans are more alert about this. It may take some time, but the reality is that things are not right, especially on these things of deliberate exclusion. And some are very clever. You know, when they realize that the ethnic balance is getting to 31%, 32%, then they introduce that now we want to recruit based on gender, or we want to recruit based on PWD. And the PWD and the gender also come from the same dominant community. So they'll give the excuse that those are the games that we are aware of, and these are studied, we have studied them. So these are some of the issues that we must confront as a country as we move forward. And lastly, for me, as a set of issues, there are some reforms which have been proposed, which include the following. And these were proposed in the BBI bill. For the avoidance of doubt, the court was clear, the Supreme Court was clear that they found public participation. They found the most important issue they said was that the so-called basic structure doctrine is dead. Long live, my interpretation, long live popular sovereignty. Long live the ability of Kenyans to debate and reform their constitution, Mr. Chairman, as you said. And that is the main lesson, the main takeaway, that we were being told in the High Court, in the Court of Appeal, that if we want to amend the Constitution, we should ask Dr. David D. for permission. If we want to amend the Constitution, we should ask a High Court judge. If we want to amend we should ask a professor in Israel, Professor Rosnai. Please allow us to amend this provision because of a so-called basic structure doctrine, which we don't know about. And even in those courts, we were being told maybe the basic structure is the entire Constitution. Maybe it is, maybe. So that is a major celebration of the Supreme Court decision, and especially because they followed the correct constitutional interpretative methodology, which was lacking in the other cases. So the idea is that we must debate these issues into the future, and some of the BBI proposals were that, for example, that Article 250 on composition, appointment, and terms of office be reviewed on issues of the numbers. These are debates into the future. For example, from 9 to 7 or something, the numbers can be debated. Then there is an issue of enhancing the capability of the office of the DPP. At the moment, that office requires greater independence, that office requires even greater financing and budgetary allocation. At the moment, that office is pegged at the High Court level, and there was a proposal to peg it at least at the Court of Appeal level, so that the officers that they also engage can also be rise. So enhance that office. And also, basically also strengthen the office of the DCI, among others. Then, of course, there was the issues which is being debated quite a lot on the judiciary ombudsman. Whatever it is, the question, how do you address the question of maladministration in the judiciary? As of now, they have a judiciary-appointed ombudsman. But the reports from the judiciary itself say it's not working, and even from outside. And then in that area, JSC, as of now, this was also a proposal from JSC by the way, that you restructure the office of CRJ, and so that CRJ does not sit in both JSC and does not also sit in the judiciary. That's a debate for Kenyans to go into the future, but that was one of the things of the table. But that may also affect the CEO business in the commissions. Some had even suggested that you merge the office of CEO and chair, but I'm also supporting some which did not make it to the bill, but which have been on the table in this country for Kenyans to discuss. Because they say that, there has been a lot of war between the chairs and CEOs. And in many organizations there are, partly because some are sponsored and overprotected, et cetera, either whoever is overprotected. But there's needs to think about it. That's just some people were saying that. There was a proposal that remove ethics from the EACC and give it to NCIC so that the ethics mandate can be handled elsewhere, and that EACC focuses on anti-corruption and related issues. Those are debates. There is the issue of CRA, the question about membership. There was this debate which, do you want to remove, balance the representation for the relevant houses, Senate and the National Assembly. There was a creation of a youth commission, and a commission. There have been so many youth agencies in this country, youth council, et cetera, et cetera. But the question is, at a commission level, it would more holistically address the youth question, which should be seen as a positive in this country. Health Service Commission has been very controversial, especially if you talk to county governors. They generally wanted it with minimal role. The professionals think that we really need a Health Service Commission, or we have an overarching commission that can help them coordinate a lot of the activities of the professionals across the country. So those are some of the issues that one would... the issue of Office of IDCI has also sometimes been linked with the Office of... which one do you strengthen? IDCI, IPOA, or both, to make sure that they can serve our country? I am respectful of the timelines, and I have saved us 1 minute. As we move forward, 1 minute, if not two. 1 minute, if not two. As we move forward, Mr. Otachi, you gave me a challenge. Then we really need to study the Supreme Court decision. We read it earlier on in a brief. It was released 2 days ago, on how to deal with the process. Whether we can amend the Constitution is cleared. How we should amend the Constitution, I think the questions that were being put on the table by the Supreme Court are not, one, the role of the president, number one. Two, the question of some issues, for example, that if it affects IEBC, there was a view in the Supreme Court that that cannot be easily be changed. But this is something that will be debated into the future. The role of the president, I want to be clear in my mind that the Supreme Court did not implement its own constitutional interpretational methodology with respect to that. It's only Justice Njokindungu who now implemented the interpretation methodology, which should go like this. What does the text say? What does it allow? What does it prohibit? What does the structure of the Constitution say? The relationship among various provisions. I'm not talking about basic structure from India, no. What does the history and practice or precedent say? The Supreme Court worked with that reasonably, and that's what we have been urging. But on the issue of the role of the president, it was based more on the majority of the Supreme Court based this decision more on what they thought was the logical flow, rather than textual authority and structural or historical authority. And therefore, and I think that's why even those who say the president has no role even said something like that. And you will notice that on that issue there was also some dissent, that probably the president can campaign, but cannot initiate. But the question here is not so much the question of initiating. The question is about promoter, and when does a promoter kick in, and who is a promoter? So that's an issue that I think the people of Kenya can still work with, and we can still amend the Constitution through the popular initiative. And for the avoidance of doubt, the people as a body in a referendum can even amend the role of IEBC. So I was wondering how that other issue came in, that they cannot change what has been given to IEBC. In a properly drafted bill, the people can even change the mandate of IEBC. Let me stop there, and thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sihanya. Let's give him a better hand of applause. Two people that you cannot easily stop: a professor before a crowd. The other one is a politician, but the content is different. Thank you very much for your patience. I don't know whether Nancy Kosgei is here. She'll be doing the closing prayer. Thank you, Nancy. Allow me to invite Honorable Kajuju, who is the Vice Chair of the Chairpersons Forum of CCIOs, and she's also the Chairperson of CAG. Remember, there is a free clinic. During this period, there is a lot of stress during this electioneering period. But we want to thank the University of Nairobi. There is a free clinic that you can take advantage and do some medical checkup. Without much ado, let's allow Honorable Kajuju to come and say the way forward and give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Tabitha. I think we have already gone past our time. We are supposed to end this engagement at 11:10, if I'm clear on the program. But now I can see that it's already 12 minutes past 1, so I'll try to make this as painless as possible. Mine is just to pass a vote of thanks to each and every one of the institutions that has been here, starting from the Dean, Professor Winfred Kamau. Thank you so much for being the Dean of our beloved program at the school, and thank you for welcoming us to this institution. We also pass our thanks to Mr. Brian Ouma, also for representing the Vice Chancellor and welcoming us to the institution, and telling us that under the
the university, now they have a master's course that is now taking our children through the course of constitutionalism. We also thank our Professor Kameri Bote, and if anything that you have to remember, remember to remember. Okay, if you must remember, you have to remember anyway. You have to remember to remember. That's what the professors taught us today, and I think it's something that we need to carry home. We thank His Excellency, the First Gentleman, for reminding us that devolution is here to stay, and that is why we have a First Gentleman, which was, I think he's among the first. He's the first among the first to be a First Gentleman. And he deserves a special clap so that he can make sure that he enjoys that position as we move on to the next stage. Thank you for taking us through the process. We really appreciate your wisdom. We thank you, Professor Ben Sihanya, for trying to make our minds really understand and think beyond what we are currently doing to the next level so that we are able to make sure our constitution is protected and the CCIOs do that which they must do as a team. Allow me also to thank the technical team. I think they are present. We appreciate you wherever you are. You know, you have done a beautiful job to make sure that this happens. And we believe that as we go to the celebrations on the 13th of April, where we invite each and every one of you to be present, thank you, technical team, and continue doing a good job. I believe our chairman is going to give you the 13th salary once this happens, as it should. Chairman, please remember that. You promised that. Thank you to the audience present, those who are here physically, those who are listening to us virtually or watching us virtually. We really appreciate you. If it were not for you, we could not be here, and we believe that it has been a step in the right direction as we take stock. We also take this opportunity, allow me as the vice chair to thank our chairman. The chairman of the CCIOs has gone an extra mile to ensure that we have the facilities, we have the funds, we have the resources, and we have the guests that are here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've done a good job, and you've stood up to that title. And I can promise you we are going to renew your term as the chairperson of the CCIOs after your term lapses. Thank you, Chairman, for doing a good job. Thank you to each and every one of us, the chairs who are present and the commissioners who are present, for being available to engage the audience, to engage the citizens, to answer questions, and also explain to us what you do within your respective mandates. And we thank the Kenyans because they've given us this opportunity to be here, to be asked questions, to be accountable to the people, to ensure that our constitution is protected. And of course, we thank God because He's given us life, He's given us everything that we need, and we believe that He's going to protect us, to take care of us as we move to this dispensation of the political season. If I've not mentioned you, please, it's not because I didn't recognize your capacity, your contribution, but just remember, I've remembered you in my thoughts, and I'm going to pray for each and every one of you. With that now, my chairman has allowed me to request that we have Nancy Kosgei giving us a prayer so that now we can conclude this. But Tabitha, if there's something I've left out, please feel free to come and mention it. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you, and God bless Kenya.
A better hand of applause for the Vice Chair of the CCIOs. Before we call Nancy Kosgei to do the closing prayer, the chairpersons will be on NTV tonight. Please, if you have time, tune in, 7:30 NTV tonight. Allow, as our African culture, when you have guests, you'll always give them a small gift as they go back home. So I will request, Robert, are you here? Yes, the chairman of National Lands Commission and the chairperson of the Chairpersons Forum of the CCIO, Mr. Gershon Otachi, will give gifts to our panelists and also our moderators. We'll start with the Vice Chairperson of the Chairpersons Forum of the CCIOs and also the Chairperson of CAJ, Honorable Florence Kajuju. Let's give her a clap. Dr. Joyce Mwikali Mutinda, the Chairperson of National Gender and Equality Commission. Dixon Kwanusu, please come and receive for Chairman Chebukati. Dixon Kwanusu will receive a gift on behalf of the Chairman of IEBC, Mr. Wafula Chebukati. On behalf of Professor Kiama, Mr. Brian Omondi, please come to the stage and receive a gift. Is he here, or anyone from the University of Nairobi? Please do. Thank you. And as you receive for Professor, please also receive yours, Professor Winfred Kamau. So she will have 2 goodie bags. The first one is on behalf of Professor Stephen Kiama, Vice Chancellor, University of Nairobi. Thank you. And the second one is on our own behalf, Professor Winfred Kamau. Thank you. Professor Kameri Mbote, also. Thank you. Dr. Muli, please, as you receive for Professor Kameri Mbote, also receive on your own behalf, Dr. Elizabeth Muli. Let's give her a clap of applause. That is on behalf of Professor Kameri Mbote. Thank you, Daktari. And on our own behalf, thank you. Thank you. Our moderator, Mr. Kamodo Waiganjo, please come to the stage. Let's give him a clap as well. Oh, His Excellency, the first gentleman of Kirinyaga County. I'm well guided. I'm well guided. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. CPA Nancy Gadongo, Auditor General. Let's give her a hand of applause. Thank you so much for your good presentation. Thank you. Thank you. And Professor Ben Sihanya of the University of Nairobi, thank you for your very good presentation on promoting effectiveness of CCIOs going into the future. I don't know whether I have left anyone behind.
There's a complaint that I went too fast.
Yes, you did. I noticed that also, please.
I thought the chair is a very busy person.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a hand of applause again. Thank you. We can now allow Nancy Kosigei, and I'm also reminded there is tea and refreshments. Please let's not leave those behind. It's part of the program. So, Karibu Nancy, you say a word of prayer.
Okay, let us stand up for a word of prayer. Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before your presence this afternoon to glorify your name because you are worthy to be praised. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful day, oh my Father. Thank you, Lord, for the liberation we have had this morning, oh my Father. We pray, Lord, as we go forward, oh my Father, be with us, oh my Father. We are planning, oh Lord, for an anniversary which is coming on that thing, oh my Father. I pray that you may be with us, oh my Father. Put your hand, oh my Father, in that event, oh my Father. Lord, for the speakers, oh my Father, who have spoken this morning, oh my Father, I pray that you may bless them, oh my Father. For this wonderful institution, oh my Father, who have held that, oh my Father, I pray, Lord, that you may be with them, oh my Father, guide them, oh my Father, protect them, oh my Father. And for the chairman of the CCIOs, oh my Father, I pray that you may be with them, oh my Father, and the chairs, oh my Father. The participants, oh my Father, who are here, oh my Father, rain the blessing on them, oh my Father. And those ones who are online, oh my Father, I pray that you may be with them, oh my Father. Lord, I also remember this nation of Kenya, oh my Father, as we move towards the coming general election, oh my Father. I pray that you may be with us, oh my Father. We ask for peace in this country, oh my Father, to prevail, oh my Father. We are asking for free and fair election, oh my Father. Let nothing happen, oh my Father. You are the owner of this country, oh my Father. I pray as we go out, oh my Father, I pray that you may guide each and every one of us, oh my Father. I pray this prayer, believing and trusting that you have heard us in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you very much. Go back safely and pass our greetings. Let us meet again on 13th next week as we celebrate the 10th anniversary. We can have the national anthem, I'm told. Yes, I've already invited them for a cup of refreshment, cup of tea and some refreshments. Yes. It's okay if it's not ready. Thank you, everyone.